Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel, the Mutant God in American Comics. Chapter 1. His father has been arrested. If we keep him here, we will be arrested together. But his father is the founder of the organization. This manor was also bought secretly by his father. This is his family's property. This is the headquarters of the organization. When his father used this place as the headquarters of the organization, it was no longer his family's property. I also think it's better to send him away. Although he has not awakened superpowers, his father has been arrested, and his identity as a mutant must have been exposed. We can't let him implicate everyone because of him. I agree to send him away. I agree. At most, I will give him a sum of money and a car. His father probably doesn't want to see the organization destroyed because of him. Let's vote. Richard, who was sleeping, vaguely heard the sound coming from outside. He slowly woke up, opened his eyes, and an angry expression appeared on his face. He was sleeping well, and was suddenly woken up. It would be strange if he got up happily. Just when he was about to get up and see what the big guys in the same dormitory were talking about, he noticed something wrong. This quilt, this bed, this room. What is this place? Am I not in the dormitory at school? Looking at the completely unfamiliar bedroom in front of him, Richard's face immediately showed a confused and puzzled expression. Just as he was about to get up to figure out where this place was, a strong headache suddenly hit him, making him instinctively cover his head, and the whole person trembled uncontrollably. What's going on? The sudden severe pain made him experience pain he had never experienced before. At the same time, his mind flashed through one memory after another that did not belong to him like a revolving lantern. When these memories that did not belong to him stopped flashing, the severe headache also disappeared. Richard sat on the bed, gasping for breath, and the expression on his face became extremely ugly. Although the memories just now did not belong to him, after being forced to browse through these memories, he finally knew what happened. Crossing. To be precise, he crossed into a mutant named Richard Wesley in the Marvel Universe. As an ordinary college student in the flower-growing family, he is not unfamiliar with such things as crossing. Or rather, he usually reads a lot of online novels about time travel. But he never thought that he would become a time traveler one day, and he would travel to the Marvel world and become a mutant. Calm down. You must be calm at this time. It's just time travel, not meeting Cthulhu. Don't be nervous at all. This is just a small matter, a very ordinary, very common small matter that many people will encounter. Richard tried to comfort himself and calm himself down as much as possible. Although it was his first time traveling through time, he had seen pigs run even if he had never eaten pork, and he gradually calmed down. He is now undoubtedly a rookie time traveler, but he has read hundreds of time travel novels after all. With so many cases of time travelers reaching the peak of their lives after traveling through time in his mind, he not only quickly accepted the fact that he traveled through time, but also began to look forward to life after traveling through time. After calming down, he began to look for his own time travel golden finger. As we all know, time travelers will have their own time travel golden fingers. Although the golden fingers of each time traveler are different, the god of time travel will treat each time traveler equally, just like canned yellow peaches will bless every child in northeast China. When the idea of finding the golden finger of time travel emerged in his mind, a holographic virtual projection-like attribute panel immediately appeared in front of him. Host: Richard. Race: Human, Beta Level Mutant. Current template: Sephiroth Fusion Degree 5%. Exclusive equipment: Authentic Sword. Skills: 8 Swords Flash Level 1, 0-100ths Earth Shaking Level 1, 0-100ths Sky Shocking Level 1, 0-100ths Zankson Level 1, 0-100ths II/ Level 1, 0-100ths. Magic: 30. X Gene Superpower. Plunder. Task: None. Storage space: Opened. The moment the system panel appeared, the relevant information of the system also appeared in his mind. Soon, he figured out what kind of system he had. Template system. A system that can obtain the abilities of template characters by loading different templates. More importantly, multiple templates can be used at the same time, and the abilities of several template characters can be obtained. Although he didn't know what templates he would get next, Richard was already looking forward to the next character template. The first template was Sephiroth, and the following templates would not be worse than Sephiroth. Richard was no stranger to Sephiroth. In other words, anyone who knew the game, Final Fantasy VII Inches would not be unfamiliar with Sephiroth. As the final boss of Final Fantasy VII Inches, Sephiroth's popularity and fame are even higher than the protagonist Cloud. However, compared with Jerusalem of 3D Zone, Tifa, Sephiroth's fame and popularity are still lower. That's Tifa. The 3D Zone cannot lose Tifa, just like the West cannot lose Jerusalem. Just by looking at this sentence, you can know the status and importance of Tifa in the 3D area. Although he lost to Tifa in fame, this does not affect Sephiroth's popularity among the ultimate villains of Final Fantasy. After browsing the system information in his mind, Richard turned off the attribute panel that only he could see. After turning off the panel, he did not get up immediately, but raised his left hand and began to summon his current exclusive equipment, Masamune, according to the system instructions. Although his dominant hand is the right hand, Sephiroth's dominant hand is the left hand. In order to improve the fusion of the template, he decided to summon the Masamune with his left hand. With a flash of light green, Sephiroth's exclusive weapon, Masamune, appeared in his hand. It's really long. After summoning the Masamune, Richard's first reaction was that the Masamune was really long. Although the official has never given the specific length value of the Masamune, it is recognized that the Masamune is much longer than the general samurai sword. The genuine sword that Richard summoned at this time was about the same length as the one in Advent Children, about 2.5 meters. The handle was 40 to 50 centimeters long and only 3 centimeters wide. As for the thickness, it was a few millimeters. If you look at it from a distance, the silver-white genuine sword is like a silver line. In the past, let alone the genuine sword that was more than 2 meters long. Even if it was an ordinary samurai sword, Richard would not dare to say that he could use it well. However, now, when he summoned the genuine sword and held the handle, an innate sense of familiarity came to his heart. Without any hesitation, he got up immediately and waved the genuine sword in the bedroom. Although the original father was not as rich as Batman, the main building of the manor was as magnificent as the main building of Wayne Manor. As the only son of the original father, the original bedroom was the second room after the master bedroom. The entire bedroom area reached 60 to 70 square meters and the height was about 5 meters. Although there were still a lot of furniture in the bedroom, this area and height were enough for him to wave the genuine sword. Straight slash, horizontal slash, diagonal chop, straight stab, upward slash. Although it was just an ordinary move, it was performed by him at this time, with a sense of beauty. After trying a few simple moves, Richard decisively used Sephiroth's signature skill, 8 Swords Flash. In just a moment, he swung out 8 slashes smoothly. 8 Swords Flash proficiency +1. The system's voice immediately sounded in his mind. The voice that suddenly sounded in his mind did not surprise Richard. When he was browsing the system description, he knew that the system would give prompts or sounds at certain times. According to the system's explanation, whether it is fighting or practicing, as long as you use skills, you can improve the proficiency of skills. In addition, using skills will consume magic power. Take the 8 Swords Flash that he is performing now, for example. Every time he uses the 8 Swords Flash, he will consume 1 point of magic power. Not only the 8 Swords Flash, but also the use of the level 1 skills such as Earth Shaking, Heaven Shaking, Zanshin, and II Slash will also consume 1 point of magic power. To put it simply, the magic power he has now can only support him to use skills 30 times. Although using skills requires magic power, it also brings another benefit, which is to prevent others from imitating his skills. If you don't have the same magic power as him, even if someone perfectly reproduces the actions of the 8 Swords Flash and Heaven Shaking skills, they can only do the same actions but can't achieve the same power. Although he didn't cut anything, Richard's intuition told him that the 8 Blades Flash he was performing now could easily cut through reinforced concrete buildings like Sephiroth in the movie. In addition to using the 8 Blades Flash and other skills, magic power can also be used to perform energy attacks or release magic skills. However, this is not something he needs to consider as he has just crossed over. His current template fusion degree is only 5%, and he has not awakened magic skills. From the description given by the system, the Sephiroth template he has is similar to Sephiroth in the remake of the game. In addition to the 8 blades flash and other skills, he also has magic skills such as Big Flame, Big Blizzard, Big Thunder, and Big Strong Wind. Richard ignored the sound of proficiency improvement in his mind and continued to practice the 8 blades flash in the bedroom. 8 swords flash proficiency +1. 8 swords flash proficiency +1. 8 swords flash proficiency +1. After performing 8 swords flash 10 times in a row and raising his proficiency to 10 points, he ended this practice with reluctance and put the more than 2-meter-long authentic sword back into the system space. After putting away the authentic sword, he went to the bathroom. Silver white long hair, light green eyes, handsome appearance. Looking at himself in the mirror, Richard smiled with satisfaction. Being strong or not is a matter of time, being handsome or not is a matter of a lifetime. Although the original body was also very handsome, quite like Leo when he was young, the hair color of the original body was not silver, but gold. As for the color of the eyes, there was no big change, both were light green. However, compared with the original body, his pupils are now vertical pupils like those of a beast. After admiring his handsome appearance that appeals to both young and old, Richard returned to the bedroom, took off his pajamas, and changed into his daily clothes. After changing his clothes, he did not leave the bedroom immediately, but sat down on a chair and thought seriously. According to the memories left by his original body, the world he traveled to is indeed the Marvel Universe, but this is not a pure Avengers movie universe or X-Men movie universe. In this world, there are Avengers, Iron Man, and Captain America. There are also X-Men, the Brotherhood of Mutants, the Hellfire Club, and the Fantastic Four. Most importantly, the United States in this world has enacted a law called the Mutant Restriction Act. The Mutant Restriction Act has 2 main contents. First, all mutants must complete registration and accept the unified management of the Department of Mutant Affairs. Second, except for mutants with official permission, other mutants are strictly prohibited from using superpowers in public. If you do not complete the registration, or use superpowers without official permission, you will be arrested by mutant agents and imprisoned in a special prison for mutants. This mutant restriction bill reminded Richard of the mutant registration bill seen in the movie. However, the mutant registration bill in the movie failed, while the mutant restriction bill in this world was successfully enacted. The original father was a mutant who opposed the mutant restriction bill, so he had never completed the registration as required by the bill. Not only that, the original father, who was a billionaire, also formed an underground mutant organization called Crimson Manor to help and shelter mutants who also opposed the mutant restriction bill. Richard is now at the headquarters of Crimson Manor. There are now more than 50 mutants living in the manor. 2 days ago, the original father left the manor with 3 mutants and went to Los Angeles to pick up a group of new members who wanted to join the organization. However, I don't know where the news leaked, and the original father and his group were arrested by agents of the Mutant Affairs Department. Although he occupied the body of the original, to Richard, the original father was no different from a stranger. Of course, if his strength allowed, he wouldn't mind rescuing his original father as a reward for occupying his original body. However, judging from the current situation, even if he wanted to repay his original father, he couldn't do it in a short period of time. He didn't know where his original father was imprisoned. More importantly, he didn't have the strength to rescue his original father at all. He can repay, but he won't risk his life for it. After browsing the memories left by the original body and figuring out the current situation, he opened the attribute panel and looked at the column of X-Gene superpowers. When his attention was focused on the 2 words plunder, the system immediately gave the corresponding explanation. Plunder. Plunder the superpowers of the people killed by your own hands, can evolve, current level, beta level. P.S. Cannot plunder superpowers that exceed your own level. The explanation given by the system was very short, only 2 sentences, but it was enough for him to figure out what the original body's superpowers were. At the same time, he also knew why the original body's father and others felt that the original body had never awakened superpowers. Plunder the superpowers of the people killed by their own hands. The original body had never killed anyone, so the superpower of plunder had never had the opportunity to show. Although the system did not clearly explain how to upgrade plunder, Richard had already guessed what to do to upgrade. Plunder other people's superpowers. When the plundered superpowers reach a certain number, plunder can be upgraded from beta level to alpha level. There are 5 levels of mutants in this world. The official classification is from level 1 to level 5. The classification promoted by Professor X and Magneto before is Epsilon, Delta, Beta, Alpha, and Omega, which symbolizes the ultimate and infinite. Although there are 5 levels, most mutants still prefer to use the classification introduced by Professor X and Magneto, that is, Gamma, Beta, and Alpha to describe their superpower levels. The reason for this is that on the one hand, most mutants do not like the Mutant Restriction Act, so they do not like the official classification. On the other hand, Beta, Alpha, and Omega are better than level 3, level 4, and level 5. Although there are levels, the levels are not completely equivalent to combat power. After all, not all superpowers are suitable for combat. Turning off the attribute panel, Richard recalled the conversations he heard before waking up. Although he could not recognize who those people were talking, he was sure of one thing, that is, those guys were going to drive him away. As soon as the original body's father was captured, he wanted to drive the original body away. These people really know how to repay kindness. Richard was just thinking about where to plunder his first superpower. Now, he has a goal. If these guys taken in by the original body's father are really so ungrateful, then don't blame him for being ruthless after occupying the original body. Without any hesitation, Richard got up and left the bedroom, heading towards the study which was not far from the bedroom. Before he reached the study door was opened, and a group of men of various ages walked out of the study. The first time he saw these men, he recognized each of them after digesting his original memory. Merrick, Beverly, Noel, Luther, Micah. In Crimson Manor, the 5 Merrick people are the management of the organization. In other words, except for the original father, the 5 of them manage different affairs of the organization. Merrick and Beverly manage the organization's funds. Noel and Luther, responsible for developing new people in the organization. As for Micah, he was responsible for the logistics of the organization. After seeing Richard walking towards the study, the 5 Mareks all showed surprised expressions. His hair, has he awakened his superpower? Richard's hair length and hairstyle are no different from his original appearance. But his current hair color is not golden, but silver. Merrick and the other 5 looked at Richard's silver hair, and the same guess immediately flashed through their minds. Although hair dyeing can also change the color of hair, they did not think that Richard secretly left the manor last night and went to a small town outside to dye his hair. Since it's not hair dyeing, the only reason left is the awakening of superpowers. Although I don't know what level of superpower Richard has awakened, Merrick, who is black and walks at the front, came to him immediately without any hesitation and asked with a kind face. Richard, have you awakened your superpower? What kind of superpowers have you awakened? Can you show it to everyone? If it were the original person, he would definitely answer Merrick's questions accurately. But unfortunately, Richard is not the original person. What abilities I have awakened, I will tell you later. When I was sleeping just now, I seemed to hear you discussing something in the study. Are you discussing how to rescue my father? Still discussing how the organization will develop next? Richard did not answer Merrick's question and asked him directly. Although he knew that they were discussing whether to send him away, he did not hear the final result. Before officially turning his back, he felt that he needed to confirm again. After hearing his words, Merrick's expression, which had been kind just now, suddenly changed and became extremely serious. Did you hear everything? Merrick asked. I didn't hear much. I just heard that you guys are planning to vote on whether to send me away. Richard looked at Merrick calmly. After speaking, he also glanced at Luther and others behind Merrick. When did his hearing become so sharp? Is it because he has awakened a superpower with keen senses? Merrick did not answer Richard's question immediately, but frowned and thought for a while. After a few seconds, he spoke. Since you have heard everything, we won't hide it from you. Yes, we were indeed voting on whether to send you away just now. Your father was captured, and your identity as a mutant must have been exposed. At this point, Merrick paused. He originally thought that Richard would be very angry when he heard his words. Unexpectedly, Not only did Richard not show an angry expression now, but he was also extremely calm, as if the person who was about to be sent away was not him at all. Although he found that Richard was different from before, he didn't think much about it and continued. After a vote, we decided to send you away for a while. Don't worry, we won't let you leave penniless. We will give you a car and 30,000, 10,000 US dollars. We will take you back after we confirm that you are not targeted by mutant agents. $10,000. You are so generous. Richard was still thinking whether it would be too much to personally destroy the organization established by his original father. After all, Crimson Manor is the brainchild of the original father. Now, he felt that he had thought too much. A car and $10,000. My father has just been arrested, and you are treating me like this. You are really kind and righteous. You must never forget that it was my father who took you in and brought you here when you were desperate. Are you really not feeling guilty if you do this? Richard asked the 5 Mareks. Just now, Merrick just felt that Richard was a little different from before. So now, he felt like Richard was a different person. In the past, Richard had a cowardly character, and he also had some low self-esteem because he had not awakened his superpower. But now, not only did he not see any weakness or inferiority in Richard, but he also felt a strength that he had never felt in Richard before. We are doing this to continue the existence of the organization. If your father is still here, he will also. Before Merrick could finish speaking, Richard interrupted him and prepared to execute the planned plan. Since you all want to die, then I will help you. There's no need to talk about the scene. Do you want me to leave? No problem. Give me the car and money, and I'll leave immediately. What? Neither Merrick nor Luther and others expected that Richard would accept this matter so quickly. Although somewhat surprised, Merrick immediately said, "Okay, we'll give you the car and money right now." A few minutes later, in the parking lot in front of the main building of the manor, Richard received $10,000 and an ordinary Ford pickup truck prepared by Merrick and others. He opened the envelope and took a look. Without any hesitation, he opened the car door and got in. Then, he started the car and drove away without saying a word. Under the gaze of Merrick and others, he quickly disappeared around the corner of the road. He won't call the police, will he? Maka said with a frown. If he calls the police, he will be the first to suffer. Merrick replied quickly, I still think he is a little strange today. Do you want to find someone to follow him? Luther looked at Merrick. Send someone to follow him. If he really calls the police, he can be stopped in advance. Beverly's voice rang out. Although he felt it was unnecessary, after seeing that Beverly and the others were a little worried, Merrick said, let Ross and Shane follow him. Okay, I'll go inform Ross and Shane now. Luther nodded. After that, he walked towards the main building of the manor, ready to let Ross and Shane follow Richard. After driving for more than 10 minutes, Richard arrived at the town closest to the manor. Without any hesitation, he went directly to the gas station in the town. After parking the car, he came to the staff and took out $2,000 from the envelope. Give me 200 gallons of gasoline. Gas stations in the United States are all in gallons, and 1 gallon is equivalent to about 3.78 liters. In addition, gas stations in the United States can buy bulk gasoline. The premise is that there are oil storage barrels. Otherwise, buying bulk gasoline is illegal. Richard did not have oil storage barrels, but this was not a problem. The price of oil in the United States is very cheap, only about $5 per gallon. $2,000 plus 200 gallons of gasoline was enough for the gas station staff to help him prepare the required oil barrels. Although it was a little strange that Richard needed so much gasoline, after seeing the US dollars he handed over, the staff took the US dollars with a smile on their faces. Okay, sir. In a few minutes, more than 10 portable barrels of gasoline were added to the cabin of the Ford pickup truck. After buying the required gasoline, Richard did not hesitate and immediately drove the Ford pickup truck back to the manor. You want to occupy the manor and the organization, right? I would rather burn it down than give it to you. Can I bear this grievance? I am a time traveler. What is he going to do? Seeing Richard buying gasoline at a gas station and then driving towards the manor, Ross and Shane, who were sent to follow him, both showed puzzled expressions. Although Luther asked them to follow Richard, Luther did not tell them that Richard had been kicked out of the organization. Luther and the others were indeed very ungrateful, but they still had to be ashamed. As soon as the original father was arrested, he voted to drive Richard away. It would not sound good if he was told about it. Do you want to contact Luther? Ross, who was sitting in the main driving seat, asked Shane. No need, he has gone back to the manor. Shane replied with a frown. All right. After hearing Shane's answer, Ross started the car and followed Richard back to the manor parking lot in front of the main building of the manor. After seeing Richard get out of the car and start to move the gasoline cans from the car, Ross and Shane, who didn't know what happened, quickly came to him. Do you need our help? Ross asked Richard. Richard gave Ross a strange look. After seeing that Rose's expression was extremely calm and nothing unusual, he quickly guessed that neither Rose nor Shane knew that he had been kicked out of the organization. Okay, I'm sorry to bother you too. You're welcome, this is what we should do. Ross and Shane immediately picked up 2 barrels of gasoline and followed Richard into the main building of the manor. Entering the main building of the manor, Richard immediately opened one of the barrels of gasoline and poured it as he walked. After seeing him pouring gasoline in the corridor of the main building, Ross and Shane were stunned for a moment. Then, he immediately stopped in front of him. What do you want to do? Ross asked immediately. Isn't that obvious enough? Richard asked Ross in return. Forehead. Although they guessed that Richard was going to set a fire, Ross and Shane still looked at him blankly, wondering why he would do this. We can't let you do this. Ross continued. Richard ignored Ross, walked around him, and continued pouring gasoline in the corridor. Soon, he finished pouring 1 bucket and was about to open the second bucket. At this moment, Merrick and others also came to the corridor and looked at him with serious expressions. Richard, don't go too far. Merrick shouted sharply. Excessive. You who just voted to drive me away have the right to say that I am too much. Richard said calmly. After hearing what Richard said, Ross and Shane finally reacted and understood why Luther asked them to follow Richard secretly. We're here to organize. Merrick continued. Richard said nothing, put down the gasoline can and raised his left hand. Authentic knife. With a thought, a 2-meter-long authentic sword appeared in his hand. This is. After seeing the authentic knife in Richard's hand, Merrick and others, as well as Ross and Shane, all showed surprised expressions. There are 2 types of people I hate the most in my life, one is Mo, and the other is an ungrateful white-eyed wolf. And you happen to have both. After saying that, Richard didn't hesitate at all. He held the authentic sword in his left hand, used both legs to shoot hard towards Merrick and the others. Although the attribute panel does not currently display his current physical attributes in detail, when he was practicing 8 swords and flash in the bedroom, he discovered that his physical attributes were not low. Not only that, but whether it was because of Sephiroth's template, he found that the Earth's gravity had little effect on him. To put it simply, he is now the same as Sephiroth in the movie. He does not obey the laws of gravity very much, and he can jump 10 or 20 meters with a single jump. Holding an authentic sword, he arrived in front of Merrick and others in the blink of an eye. 8 swords flash. Without any hesitation, he immediately used the 8 swords flash. In just one moment, he could swing 8 slashes smoothly. Laugh. The sharp authentic knife sliced through the bodies of Merrick, Luther, and Beverly as easily as it sliced through a cream cake, turning them into dozens of corpses of different sizes. How is this possible? After seeing Richard instantly killing the 3 Mareks like a god of death, Noel, Ross and others all showed expressions of disbelief. They would never have thought that Richard, who had a cowardly personality and did not look like a second-generation rich man, could have such a cruel side. They didn't expect that Richard could actually unleash such amazing fighting power. Merrick and the others were selected by his original father as the management of the organization. On the one hand, this is because they are all middle-aged people in their 30s and 40s, and have much richer social and life experience than young people. On the other hand, it is because they all have good fighting abilities. Take Merrick, Luther, and Beverly, who are now killed by Richard. Merrick's superpower is to control electricity, while Luther's superpower is super strength and super physique. As for Beverly, he has the ability to freeze. Although the 3 of them are not the strongest mutants in the organization, their combat abilities rank among the top in Crimson Manor. However, Now, as the backbone of the organization, they were killed by Richard instantly like insignificant ants. Rose and Shane, get out. When Noel, Ross and others looked at the corpses of Merrick and the others with expressions of disbelief, Richard's voice rang out. Although they didn't know why Richard had such amazing strength, Ross and Shane were sure of one thing now, that is, Richard was not joking. If they didn't leave, they would definitely die here like Merrick and the other two. After realizing this, Ross and Shane immediately put down the gasoline barrels in their hands and left without looking back. As for Noel and Maka, they all used their superpowers. Although they had guessed what Richard was going to do next, guessing didn't mean they had the ability to stop Richard. Earth shaking. After seeing Noel and the other two trying to use their superpowers, he attacked again. This time, he didn't use the 8 blades flash, but earth shaking. In just a moment, he came in front of Noel, and the authentic sword in his hand swung out 4 slashes. Like Merrick and the other two, Noel immediately turned into a pile of corpses of different sizes. In the game, the last knife of earth shaking has a knockback effect. But this is not a game, so Noel and Maka were not knocked out, but chopped into pieces of different sizes. After killing Noel with lightning, Richard used Zengson on Maka who was far away. The blade of the authentic sword shone with purple light. As the authentic sword was swung, several crescent-shaped, sword chi, with purple outside and white inside flew towards Maka at a high speed. Chi 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 chi. The crescent-shaped, sword chi, instantly tore Maka's body and completely ended his life. Although it was not long since he crossed into this world, after browsing the memories of the original body and the system's instructions, Richard knew that Merrick and the other 5 were definitely not his opponents. To put it bluntly, if he couldn't beat Merrick and the other 5 with the golden finger of the system, then he would be too embarrassed as a crosser. After killing Merrick and the other 5, Richard did not use the plundering superpower immediately, but picked up the gasoline barrel and continued his previous work. After pouring out all the gasoline he brought in and driving away everyone in the main building, he slowly came to the corpses of Merrick and the others. Plunder. Without any hesitation, he immediately used the plundering superpower. As the plundering superpower took effect, invisible energy flew out from the wreckage of Merrick and the others and poured into his right hand. At the same time, the system prompt appeared in his sight. Get new abilities. X-Gene Superpower Content Update. X-Gene Superpower. Plunder, Control of Electric Current, Super Strength, Super Physique, Freezing, Mind Isolation, Super Self-Healing, Flash. Although he only killed 5 people, Richard plundered 7 superpowers this time. Noel has the superpowers of Flash and Mind Isolation, while Maka has the superpower of Super Self-Healing. Looking at the newly acquired superpowers, Richard smiled with satisfaction. According to the current situation, as long as he continues to plunder other people's superpowers, he will have thousands of superpowers like Professor X's son, Legion, and become an undoubted Omega-level mutant. Not only that, if Plunder continues to upgrade, he can even have tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of superpowers at the same time, becoming a mutant god in a sense. Just when Richard was imagining the wonderful life after becoming the god of mutants, the voice of the system sounded in his mind. Controlling electric current can be converted into the skill, Big Thunder. Can it be converted? Freeze can be converted into the skill, Big Blizzard. Do you want to convert it? After hearing the sound of the system, Richard immediately chose, yes, without any hesitation. The next second, new system information appeared in his sight. Skill Big Thunder awakens. Skill Blizzard awakens. Updated information on skills and X-Gene superpowers. Skills. 8 Swords Flash Level 1, 11 100ths Earthshaking Level 1, 1 100th Sky Shattering Level 1, 0 100ths Zanshin Level 1, 1 100th II Level 1, 0 100ths Thunder Level 1, 0 100ths Blizzard Level 1, 0 100ths. X-Gene superpowers. Plunder, Super Strength, Super Physique, Flash, Psychic Isolation, Super Self-Healing. Big Thunder and Big Blizzard are Sephiroth's skills in the remake of the game. Big Thunder releases lightning to attack enemies, while Big Blizzard summons ice to attack enemies. In terms of effects, the effects of Thunder and Lightning and Blizzard are not particularly different from those of controlling electric current and freezing superpowers. But in terms of growth potential, the potential of thunder and lightning and blizzard is far higher than the superpowers of controlling electricity and freezing. Whether it was the ability to control electricity that was stolen from Merrick, or the freezing ability that was stolen from Beverly, they were only beta-level superpowers. Although beta-level superpowers are not bad, compared with alpha-level and omega-level superpowers, beta-level superpowers are not strong. But Big Thunder and Lightning and Big Blizzard are different. Just looking at the performance in the remastered version of the game, Thunderbolt and Blizzard are indeed not particularly strong. But now we are not in the game. According to the instructions given by the system, all skills can be upgraded to the upper limit of the template. Although it was not clear what the upper limit of Sephiroth's template was, Richard's intuition told him that Thunderbolt and Blizzard should be able to be upgraded to a level comparable to alpha-level superpowers. If the upper limit of the template is high enough, it is not impossible to upgrade to omega-level abilities. After turning off the information panel, Richard took out the cigar ignition gun he had just taken from the living room from his pocket and lit the gasoline-drenched wall on fire. Then, amid the rapidly spreading fire, he slowly left the main building and came to the open space in front of the main building door. At this time, 30 or 40 people gathered in front of the main building. These people are all ordinary members of the organization. They looked at the main building that was gradually being swallowed up by the fire with complicated expressions, and they couldn't understand why Richard would do something so cruel. Even if they were dissatisfied with Merrick and the others who voted to drive him away, couldn't they vent their anger by killing Merrick? Is it necessary to burn down the main building as well? Without the main building, where will they live in the future? Just when they were about to say something, Richard's voice rang out. The organization has been disbanded, you can leave. What? After hearing what Richard said, everyone showed surprised expressions. They were just wondering if Richard was going to take them to other secret bases. For example, manors located on the outskirts of other cities. After all, the original person's father is a billionaire, and there may not be only one manor purchased secretly. Unexpectedly, Richard directly disbanded the entire organization. How could you do this? You are so irresponsible. That's not what your father promised at the beginning. You burned down the main building, and now we don't even have a place to live. No, you have to give us an explanation. That's right, you either give us enough money or arrange a new place for us, otherwise we won't leave. Soon, more than 10 people stopped in front of Richard, shouting at him excitedly. After taking a look at the dozen or so people in front of him, Richard silently recited in his heart without any hesitation. Big thunder and lightning. Boom. The next second, 5 or 6 silver lightning bolts of different sizes fell from the sky and struck these people. Although the thunder and lightning was not released with all its strength, the lightning that fell from the sky still caused a lot of damage to these people and knocked them all away. Explain. Why should I explain to you? What qualifications do you have to answer to me? Is it because you eat and live in my house, or is it because of your greed and ingratitude? My father was arrested. Instead of thinking about how to rescue him, you were eating and drinking like nothing happened. Both of you will only say that this is no good and that is not good. You need good food and expensive food. Have you made any contributions since you came here? No, nothing. You haven't made a penny for the organization, and you haven't done anything useful. You are just a bunch of white-eyed wolves who only know how to eat, drink and have fun. You want to explain, right? No problem. My explanation is that I can personally send you all to hell one by one, and let you continue to follow Merrick and the others. This is the explanation I will give. Do you dare to ask for it? Although he only occupied the body of the original body, not the original body himself, Richard was still angry when he saw this group of ungrateful fools who were untamable and ungrateful. The original body was cowardly, so he didn't dare to say anything. But he was not the original body. If it weren't for the fact that these people were personally brought back by the original body's father, he would have wanted to kill these ungrateful fools with an authentic knife. Hearing Richard's words, mainly after being taught a lesson by him with thunder and lightning, the people who had just insisted on him giving an explanation have now become mute. Not to mention continuing to ask Richard for an explanation, even if they felt severe pain in their bodies, they are now trying to endure it and dare not make a sound, for fear that Richard will continue to attack them. I'll give you 1 minute, all of you get out. If you are still here in 1 minute, I will send you to hell with my own hands. After saying that, Richard ignored these people and went straight to the Ford pickup truck he had driven before and took out the other 4 barrels of gasoline in the cargo box. Seeing Richard walking towards the garage with a gasoline barrel, the mutants gathered in front of the main building left one after another. It was obvious that Richard was not going to let them drive away. To be precise, he was not going to let them take anything valuable away. Garage, church, warehouse, garden. Even the main building was burned, so Richard certainly would not let go of these places. It took more than 10 minutes to set all these places on fire, and after standing in front of the main building to admire his masterpiece, Richard returned to the Ford pickup and drove away from the manor that was completely engulfed by the fire. Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department. Meeting room. A tall, muscular middle-aged black man who looked like a bodybuilder, holding a document, said to the mutant agents in the conference room. Roy Wesley, who was arrested 2 days ago, has already confessed. On the surface, he is the chairman of the Wesley Group, a wealthy man with a good reputation who often participates in charity activities. But these are all his disguises. He is the founder of the underground organization, Crimson Manor, and has attracted many mutants who oppose the restriction bill. Currently, there are more than 50 unregistered mutants in Crimson Manor, including his son Richard Wesley. According to his account, there are only 5 third-level mutants in Crimson Manor, and the others are second-level and first-level. This is just a small organization with ordinary strength, so there is no need for everyone to go there together. Slater, Bourne, and Anessa, the 3 of you take a special forces team and go there to capture them all. If there is resistance, kill them on the spot. As soon as the black supervisor finished speaking, Anisha, who was wearing revealing clothes and had a hot figure, said, "I'm not interested in a small organization that doesn't even have level 4 mutants. Boss, please send someone else there." Although her dress is very hot and reveals a lot of fair skin, it is easy for people to have the idea of taking her to the bed and ravaging her. But none of the men in the conference room looked at her. Not only that, even if she spoke now, all the men, including the black supervisor, did not focus on her. Others may not know Anisha's abilities and can't help but look at her, but these men in the conference room don't. Because they know that once they set their sights on Anisha, they will easily be affected by her superpowers. "I'm not negotiating with you, this is the branch chief's intention. If you don't want to go to the branch head and explain yourself," the black supervisor said slowly. After hearing the words of the black supervisor, the charming expression on Anisha's face that seemed to be born with her suddenly disappeared without a trace. "Since it's the branch head's decision, I'll go there." After saying that, Anisha stood up and left the conference room without looking back. When she left the conference room, Slater and Byrne stood up and left the conference room. City of Santa Ana. After setting fire to the manor, Richard drove to Santa Ana. Santa Ana is a city in Orange County in Southern California, southeast of Los Angeles and only 55 kilometers away from Los Angeles. Although he is now a mutant and an unregistered illegal mutant, Richard has no intention of hiding in a place with few human traces. Not only that, he also plans to go directly to Los Angeles and find a place to stay in Los Angeles. The most dangerous place is the safest place. Los Angeles is the city with the most mutant populations in California. Although the largest branch of the Department of Mutant Affairs in California is the Los Angeles branch, there are not a few illegal mutants hiding in Los Angeles. Richard's current plan is very simple, that is, to settle in Los Angeles, improve his strength, and at the same time look for opportunities to rob more mutants of their superpowers. As long as you become stronger, you don't need to worry even if you are known to be an unregistered illegal mutant. Magneto is a perfect example. The whole world knows that he is an unregistered illegal mutant, and he is also the hawkish leader of the mutant community who opposes the US government. But until now, American officials have been unable to do anything about Magneto. Let alone arresting him, we couldn't even wipe out the Brotherhood of Mutants he founded. After driving to Santa Ana, Richard directly sold the Ford pickup truck and exchanged it for more than $20,000. Then, he found a 24-hour chain restaurant where he was going to have lunch today and think about his next plan. The original father was captured by agents of the Department of Mutant Affairs. This also means that both he and the Crimson Manor have been exposed. Although the original father would not take the initiative to explain anything, falling into the hands of the Department of Mutant Affairs was not something he wanted to say. If nothing else, as long as you find a mutant with telepathic abilities, you can make your original father explain everything clearly. Not only that, according to the consistent style of the Department of Mutant Affairs, all the assets of the original father are now either seized or under strict surveillance. However, this is not a particularly troublesome thing for Richard. Although he can't use the money in his bank account now, when he set fire to the main building of the manor, he took all the cash and jewelry from his father's bedroom safe and study safe and put them in the system space. As long as he doesn't use his previous bank card, even if the Department of Mutant Affairs closely monitors those bank accounts, it will be impossible to find him. Of course, this all assumes that the Department of Mutant Affairs has not issued a wanted warrant against him. Otherwise, even if he uses cash, he will still be exposed. In this world, ordinary people's discrimination against mutants is not generally serious. Coupled with official propaganda and fueling, the discrimination faced by mutants now is no better than that of black slaves back then. Not long after sitting down, the waiter brought the food that Richard ordered. Hot dogs, bacon, omelets, French fries, burgers. After taking a look at the standard American food in front of him, Richard began to enjoy his first meal after traveling to this world. At the same time, he was thinking about whether to find a mutant organization to transition to. Before you become completely strong, joining an organization is a good idea. However, he quickly gave up the idea. A small mutant organization, no need to join. As for the well-known mutant organizations such as the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants, there are many people who want to join the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants, but not many can actually join. Not to mention X-Men. The X-Men are not an organization that you can just join if you want to. Although everyone knows that the Mutant School in Westchester, New York is the headquarters of the X-Men. But neither the X-Men nor the Mutant School are suitable for illegal mutants like Richard. As for the Brotherhood of Mutants, not to mention that most people don't know where the headquarters of the Brotherhood of Mutants is, even the US government doesn't know. Otherwise, the US government would have sent people to eradicate the Brotherhood of Mutants, which was labeled a terrorist organization. Forget it. Let's just be self-reliant. Richard gave up the idea of joining other organizations and concentrated on finishing the lunch in front of him. Just when he was about to finish lunch, the door of the restaurant was pushed open, and a middle-aged man with a rough and bold look and a very masculine look walked in with a girl of 17 or 18 years old, who was extremely outstanding in appearance and even not inferior to Hollywood actresses. Although it was the first time to see them, Richard immediately recognized them after seeing this middle-aged man and the beautiful girl. Sabretooth Victor and Flashing Clarice. Whether it is Sabretooth Victor or Flashing Clarice, they look similar to the ones in the movie. If there is any difference, it is that the current Flashing Clarice is much younger than in the movie Days of Future Past. When Richard saw the first sight of Clarice, a sentence flashed through his mind unconsciously. She led the aesthetics of an era with her own strength, and cut off the cheeks of women from both sides of the Taiwan Strait without bloodshed. After knowing that he had traveled to the Marvel Universe, he knew that sooner or later he would meet the characters in the movies and comics. But he didn't expect that this day would come so soon. Although it was a bit unexpected, he didn't take the initiative to contact the idea of Victor the Saber-Toothed Tiger and Clarice. He didn't deny that Clarice was indeed very eye-catching. But he would not forget that he was just a beta-level mutant with ordinary strength. Even if he wanted to open a harem like other travelers, it was not something he needed to consider now. Women would only affect the speed of my sword drawing. Before he confirmed that he had strong enough self-protection ability, such as being able to chop all the way from the White House to the Pentagon with an authentic sword, back and forth, with his hands up and his sword down, without blinking for 3 days and 3 nights, he would not waste too much time on women. Although Richard did not intend to approach the saber-toothed tiger, who was not easy to talk to, and Clarice, who looked exactly like the woman when she was young, the saber-toothed tiger, who had the sense of a beast, immediately noticed his gaze on him and Clarice. After seeing a strange silver-haired boy looking at himself and Clarice with unfriendly eyes, Sabretooth immediately showed a fierce expression and eyes, and warned Richard with his expression and eyes. Although Clarice was not his biological daughter, but adopted by him, he was no different from other fathers and was very concerned about other men's ideas about Clarice. Of course, he also knew that Clarice was indeed very beautiful and was an absolute beauty who could easily attract the attention of the opposite gender. However, this did not mean that he would allow others to have ideas about Clarice. As a man who had lived for almost 200 years, he knew very well that young men would have those inappropriate thoughts after seeing Clarice. In the past few years, as Clarice became more and more attractive, he had dealt with many men who had bad intentions towards Clarice. After seeing the warning look from Sabretooth, Richard shrugged, retracted his gaze, and continued to enjoy the lunch in front of him. Sabretooth and Clarice came to sit by the window. After lunch, Richard was about to leave the restaurant when a black Chevrolet SUV and two similar black armored vehicles arrived outside the restaurant. He frowned slightly after seeing the logo on the car body. These cars all have the logo of the Mutant Affairs Department. This means that the people sitting in the car are either agents of the Mutant Affairs Department or special forces of the Mutant Affairs Department. Richard was not the only one who noticed these three cars. Sabretooth, Clarice, and other guests in the restaurant also noticed it. Under the gaze of everyone, the Chevrolet SUV in the front opened the door, and two men and one woman got out of the car. Both men were wearing common leather jackets and shirts, and they didn't look special. And the woman's dress was a bit alternative, or inappropriate. This woman, who looked to be in her early 30s, had big wavy blonde hair, a curvy figure, and a foxy look. However, this was not the most eye-catching thing. What really attracted attention was the woman's dress. The hot blonde woman was wearing a tight, deep V backless long dress that looked like an evening gown, revealing a large area of fair skin on her chest and back. More importantly, the hem of the long dress was very short, only reaching the middle of her thighs, revealing her round and slender legs. As the woman walked, the hem of her skirt swayed slightly, with an undisguised style. After seeing this blonde woman, most of the male customers in the restaurant swallowed their saliva unconsciously. To be precise, except for Richard and Sabretooth, they all showed greedy and fanatical expressions, as if they were going to immediately press the blonde woman to the ground and ravage her. These two men and one woman were none other than Anessa and the other two who had received the mission and were going to the manor to capture Richard and others. Richard didn't know Anessa, but he was sure of one thing, that is, except for him and Sabretooth, all the other male customers in the restaurant were affected by Anessa's superpowers. When he looked at Anessa like everyone else, the mind isolation ability he plundered from Noel helped him isolate the mental influence from Anessa. Unlike telepathy, which needs to be actively performed, mind isolation is a passive ability, and the effect is to isolate the influence of other mental abilities. Richard was immune to Anessa's influence because of the mind isolation ability. The method used by Sabretooth was much simpler and more brutal. With a strong will far beyond that of ordinary people and cultivated after living for nearly 200 years, he directly resisted Anessa's mental influence. Although not affected by Anessa's ability, both Richard and Sabretooth had a bad premonition. Or, they all thought that Anessa was here to arrest them. When Anessa and the other two got off the car, the doors of the two armored vehicles behind slowly opened. A team of fully armed soldiers got off the car. After seeing these soldiers, Richard and Sabretooth stood up at the same time and prepared for battle. Their actions immediately attracted the attention of Anessa and the other two and the soldiers behind them. Then, they showed surprised expressions. Richard Wesley. Anessa and the others did go to the manor to capture Richard and others, but they never expected to meet Richard here. Although it was a bit unexpected, after seeing Richard, Anessa pointed at Sabretooth Tiger and said to Slater and Bourne, "He is left to you to deal with, Richard Wesley is mine." As teammates in the same branch, Slater and Bourne knew very well what Anessa was thinking. However, they did not object to Anessa's arrangement. They didn't care at all whether Richard would be played by Anessa and become unrecognizable. They only cared whether this mission could be successfully completed. Slater and Bourne did not hesitate at all, and immediately pushed open the door of the restaurant and walked towards Sabretooth Tiger and Clarice. As for Anessa, she walked towards Richard in a charming manner with nearly 10-centimeter stilettos. What does this woman want to do? Richard looked at Anessa in confusion. Although Anisha was now walking towards him, Richard did not sense any murderous or fighting intent from her. In addition to the mind isolation, ability that has been sending out warnings, reminding him that Anessa is using her psychic abilities on him. Anessa looks like she has come to date him on purpose. Although he didn't know what Anessa was planning, Richard didn't waste his brain cells to guess, and raised his left hand directly. Authentic knife. With a thought, the authentic knife placed in the system space instantly appeared in his hand. After summoning the authentic knife, he didn't hesitate at all and slashed directly. At this time, he didn't use skills such as 8 Swords Flash and Earth Shock, but swung an ordinary slash. The more than 2-meter-long authentic knife passed like lightning, and in the blink of an eye it came to Anessa. Just when the authentic knife was about to cross Anessa's neck and completely cut off her head, a shock wave that could not be detected by the naked eye appeared out of thin air and hit the authentic knife. Bang! The huge impact force directly bounced the authentic knife away. You are so cruel at such a young age. It seems that your sister needs to teach you a lesson. Anessa's soft and seductive voice sounded. Flash. Richard ignored Anessa and used Flash directly. He was not going to use Flash to escape, but to fight outside the restaurant. Although he could also use the authentic sword to fight in the restaurant, the environment of the restaurant could not compare to the open space. Under Anessa's gaze, he disappeared in an instant and came out of the restaurant. Summoning a long sword and Flash. Is this the superpower you awakened? No, he awakened not only 2 abilities, but also the mental ability to resist mental charm. After seeing Richard disappear, Anessa showed a surprised expression. According to the original father, Richard did not awaken superpowers. However, now, he not only summoned a more than 2-meter-long authentic sword in front of Anessa, but also used the Flash ability plundered from Luther. More importantly, he was full of vigor and vitality and was not affected by the spiritual charm at all. After seeing the authentic sword he summoned out of thin air, Anessa, who didn't know the truth, naturally regarded the authentic sword as his awakened superpower. 3 abilities were obtained after the initial awakening. This trip was not in vain. Anessa showed a meaningful and satisfied expression. The next second, her figure disappeared and she instantly came to the outside of the restaurant. To be precise, she came to Richard, who was slaughtering the special forces. After flashing outside the restaurant, Richard was not idle and immediately attacked the special forces near the armored vehicle. Although he has a super physique, the super physique plundered from Luther is not particularly strong, but only a beta-level superpower. Compared with ordinary people, his current super physique can indeed be bulletproof to a certain extent. However, this does not mean that he can resist all bullets. Although he has not tested the defensive ability of the super physique. But from the memory left by the original body, Luther's super physique can only resist some common bullet attacks. If it is an armor-piercing bullet or a large-caliber sniper bullet, it can also penetrate the defense of the super physique. Earth-shaking. After flashing outside the restaurant, Richard immediately performed earth-shaking. The silver-white authentic knife passed like a silver line, and instantly swung out 4 consecutive slashes, killing the 4 special forces in the front. Although only 4 special forces were killed, his move still shocked many people. Especially the special forces next to him. Because when he performed the earth-shaking technique, the authentic knife not only slashed through the bodies of the 4 special forces, but also slashed through the armored vehicle next to them. Under the gaze of these special forces, the sturdy armored vehicle was instantly chopped into several pieces by the authentic knife like a watermelon and was completely scrapped. The armored vehicle, which has good defense and can withstand rifle fire, is as fragile as a fruit in front of the authentic knife and is destroyed in the blink of an eye. Seeing that the armored vehicle and the 4 teammates could not withstand the attack of the authentic knife, the other special forces did not hesitate at all, and immediately turned the muzzle and pulled the trigger. Da 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 da. The dense and loud gunshots sounded immediately. The reaction of these special forces cannot be said to be slow, but unfortunately, they are all ordinary people. Although they have undergone rigorous military training, they are still ordinary people. Before they had time to pull the trigger, Richard used Flash to leave the original position and strangely appeared more than 10 meters behind them. Zankson. Richard did not continue to use Shaking Earth, but used Residual Heart. As the authentic sword was swung out, 5 or 6 crescent-shaped sword chi with purple outer skin and white inner skin flew towards these special forces at high speed. Chi 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 chi. Although these special forces were wearing bulletproof vests, they were no different from cream cakes in front of the crescent-shaped sword chi created by residual heart. The crescent-shaped sword chi with purple outer skin and white inner skin instantly passed through their bodies and completely ended their lives. It took only 2 or 3 seconds from flashing out of the restaurant to using residual heart to kill these special forces. However, in just these 2 or 3 seconds, more than 10 special forces died in Richard's hands, and more than half of them were killed. Although there were still 7 or 8 special forces who were not dead, for Richard, it was only a matter of time to kill them. Just as he was about to continue using skills to kill the remaining special forces, Anessa flashed in front of him. "He is my prey, don't interfere," Anessa said to the remaining special forces. As soon as the voice fell, Richard was hit by a powerful shock wave that was imperceptible to the naked eye. He was thrown out and fell towards the street. Richard did not let himself fall on the street in embarrassment, and used the flash again. Before he came into close contact with the ground, he flashed back to the parking lot in front of the restaurant and looked at Anessa seriously. Although Anessa's attack did not cause serious damage to him, it was enough to make him be alert. He thought Anessa could only deflect the enemy's attack. It turns out that Anessa's ability to bounce is not that simple. In addition to being able to deflect the enemy's attacks and weapons, her ability to bounce can also be used to attack the enemy directly. Possess 3 superpowers, she is worthy of being an agent of the Department of Mutant Affairs. So far, Anessa has demonstrated a psychic ability similar to Charm, the ability to deflect attacks on enemies, and the ability to flash with an unknown limit distance. Although the number of superpowers is not equal to strength, a mutant who can awaken several superpowers must be quite strong. When Richard looked at Anessa, Anessa also looked at him with interest. If seeing Richard summon the authentic knife and perform flash was enough to surprise her, then after seeing him wield the authentic knife and easily kill more than a dozen Special Forces members, Anessa was more interested in him. Although there are not many mutants who awaken 2 superpowers at the first awakening, some will appear from time to time. But there are not many mutants who can show strong combat power just a few days after awakening superpowers. Mutants' superpowers are indeed innate. But this does not mean that mutants can use superpowers to fight well once they awaken superpowers. Let alone fighting, many mutants need a long time to do even the most basic adaptation after awakening superpowers. Although I don't know why Richard can show such a strong superpower as soon as he awakens superpowers. But there was one thing that Anessa was sure of, that was that she was becoming more and more interested in Richard. Not only that, at this moment, she had already begun to imagine the beautiful scene of training Richard in her mind. After looking at Richard for a few seconds, Anessa raised her right hand and took the initiative to attack. The moment she raised her right hand, a powerful shock wave that could not be detected by the naked eye attacked Richard like a cannonball. Although he could not see the shock wave released by Anessa, Richard immediately had a strong sense of danger in his heart. Without any hesitation, he performed the flash again. The powerful shock wave released by Anessa did not hit Richard, who flashed away, but hit the car behind him. Boom! The car parked behind Richard was completely blown away, flying directly from the restaurant's parking lot to the busy street, and hit heavily in the middle of the road. Unlike the shock wave that bounced him away just now, the shock wave released by Anessa this time was obviously much stronger. This superpower is good. I want it. Without any hesitation, he held the handle of the authentic knife and prepared to perform the 8-knife flash. However, just when he was about to perform the 8-knife flash to quickly deal with Anessa, a loud noise came from the restaurant. The next second, the rugged-looking saber-toothed tiger was knocked out. Bang! The saber-toothed tiger smashed the glass of the restaurant and hit the hood of one of the cars heavily. Although it is unknown who knocked the saber-toothed tiger out, just by looking at the saber-toothed tiger flying directly from the restaurant to the hood of a car more than 10 meters away, you can know that the person who knocked him out has a strength far beyond that of ordinary people. Under the gaze of Richard, Anessa and others, the saber-toothed tiger quickly stood up. For the saber-toothed tiger with super self-healing ability, whether it is being knocked out or being hit by a bullet, it is not a serious matter. Although he does not have a truly immortal body, it is not an easy thing to kill him. Richard did not care too much about the saber-toothed tiger and turned his head to look at the restaurant. Has the space door been created to leave? After seeing that Flash Clarice was not in the restaurant, Richard immediately guessed that she had used her superpowers to leave the restaurant. Clarice's superpowers are not suitable for frontal combat, but they are very suitable for escape. If she can't be captured right away, she can easily escape. Is that girl your girlfriend? Ines's voice suddenly rang out. What? After hearing what Inessa said, Richard was stunned for a moment. Although he didn't know what Inessa was planning, he still replied. No, isn't it? That's a pity. If she was your girlfriend, it would be more interesting to train you in front of her. Inessa looked at Richard seriously. Train me. Although he guessed that Inessa was definitely not a decent woman when he saw her clothes, Richard didn't expect that Inessa would want to train him. Don't worry, you won't have such a chance. As soon as the voice fell, Richard used the flash. Because Inessa also has the ability to flash, in order to prevent her from avoiding the attack range of the 8 swords in one flash, he chose to use the flash to close the distance. In just a moment, he flashed in front of Inessa. 8 swords flash. The authentic sword flashed. Although both were slashes, compared to earth shaking and sky shaking, which only slashed 4 times in a row, 8 blades flash was not only faster, but also much more powerful. Facing Richard's 8 blades flash, Inessa did not dodge, but stood there calmly. However, just as she tried to deflect the authentic sword in Richard's hand, she noticed something was wrong, and her face suddenly changed. Unlike the casual slashes in the restaurant, the 8 blades flash that Richard was performing now was Sephiroth's signature skill. Flash. Realizing that something was wrong, Inessa immediately performed flash, trying to avoid Richard's 8 blades flash. Her reaction was quick. The speed of performing flash was not slow either. But even so, the sharp authentic sword still slashed across her body. Swish. The authentic sword touched her slender waist, making her feel the cold touch of the authentic sword and the intense pain of her body being cut open. As a mutant agent who has awakened 3 superpowers and has outstanding combat records, Inessa's status in the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department is not low. Not only that, her strength can also be ranked in the top 5 in the Los Angeles branch. But at this time, she still made a fatal mistake. That is, she underestimated Richard and 8 swords flash. The severe pain from her waist interrupted her flash that had not yet been performed. Then, while she showed an unbelievable expression, the authentic knife kept slashing through her body. Chi. In just a moment, her slim and hot body became fragmented, blood and flesh flew everywhere, and turned into pieces of broken limbs and arms that fell to the ground. After killing Inessa, Richard did not hesitate at all and immediately used the Plunder superpower. Get new abilities. Mind Charm, Flash, and Bounce. Get the same type of ability, Ability Fusion. Flash is strengthened. After plundering Inessa's superpowers, he did not read the system's description of the ability in detail, and attacked the remaining special forces with the authentic knife. Without much effort, he killed the remaining special forces with lightning. After seeing him kill Inessa with an authentic knife that was more than 2 meters long, the 2 mutant agents in front of Saber-Tooth Tiger showed shocked expressions. How is this possible? How could Inessa die in the hands of a mutant who had just awakened superpowers? This is unscientific. Although they saw Inessa being killed by Richard with their own eyes, the 2 mutant agents still couldn't believe what they saw. Not only that, they even suspected that they were hallucinating. But soon, they knew that what they saw was not an illusion. Because after killing those special forces, Richard immediately attacked the 2 of them. Zangson. Richard waved the authentic knife in his left hand casually. As the authentic knife fell, 6 or 7 crescent-shaped sword chi flew towards the 2 of them at high speed. Although they did not see the scene where Richard used the remnant heart to deal with the special forces, the 2 mutant agents did not dare to be careless and immediately jumped to the side to avoid the attacking sword chi. The sword chi flew past them and instantly penetrated the walls and ceiling of the restaurant, making the restaurant a mess. Saber-Tooth Tiger did not know Inessa, nor did he think it was difficult to imagine Richard killing Inessa. After seeing the 2 mutant agents separated because of dodging the remnant heart's sword chi, he did not hesitate and immediately pounced on the mutant agent closest to him. At the same time, Richard also flashed in front of another mutant agent and performed the earth shaking. 4 lightning-fast slashes instantly hit the mutant agent, chopping him into pieces of meat of different sizes. After killing the other party, Richard once again used the Plunder superpower. New abilities. Super strength, super physique. Ability of the same type, ability fusion. Super strength and super physique are enhanced. He ignored the system information that appeared in his sight and began to attack the last mutant agent. With the joint efforts of him and Sabretooth, the mutant agent soon lost his life. Before Sabretooth broke the mutant agent's neck, Richard pierced the opponent's heart with an authentic knife in advance. Then, he performed plunder without making a sound. New abilities. Super strength, self-healing factor. Ability of the same type, ability fusion. Super strength and super self-healing are enhanced. X-Gene superpowers update. X-Gene superpowers. Plunder, super strength, super physique, super self-healing, flash, mind isolation, mind charm, flying. Although Richard plundered 7 superpowers from Inessa and the other 2, the number of superpowers he has now has not increased much, only 2. He knew early on that plundering the same type of abilities would be fused and strengthened, so there was no surprise. Although there are many mutants, many of them have similar or the same superpowers. Take super strength and super physique as examples, these 2 abilities are very common superpowers. However, even if they are the same super strength and super physique, there will be a big gap. Some people's super strength can only lift tens of tons of weight. And some people's super strength can easily lift tens of thousands of tons of weight. Turning off the information panel that only he can see, Richard put the authentic knife back into the system space. Just as he was about to perform flash and leave, the saber-toothed tiger stopped him. "Are you Richard Wesley? Roy Wesley is your father?" Sabretooth asked Richard. "Do you know my father?" Richard looked at Sabretooth with some surprise. "When your father was young, I dealt with him several times. I heard that he founded a mutant organization called Crimson Manor. This time I came to find him specifically." Sabretooth continued. "You were late. My father was arrested by agents of the Mutant Affairs Department a few days ago. As for Crimson Manor, I just disbanded it a few hours ago." Richard looked at Sabretooth calmly. Although he can't telepathize now, he can only isolate his mind, but he can see that Sabretooth is not lying. Just when Sabretooth was about to say something else, a siren sounded in the distance. "Leave here first." After saying that, Sabretooth looked at the 5-story residential building across the street and waved to Clarice on the roof. After seeing him wave his hand, Clarice immediately used her superpowers to create a space door connected to the roof. As soon as the space door was formed, Sabretooth walked in. After taking a look at the space door in front of him, Richard followed Sabretooth into it and came to the roof of the residential building. When both of them came to the roof, Clarice first closed the space door in front of her, then raised her right hand and threw out a ball of purple energy. The thrown purple energy expanded rapidly and instantly turned into a space door to the suburbs. "Can we only open one space door at a time now?" Looking at Clarice in front of him, this thought flashed through Richard's mind unconsciously. After passing through the space gate created by Clarice, Richard and his friends came to the suburbs. Then, they found an ordinary coffee shop and sat down. After ordering 3 cups of coffee from the waiter, Sabretooth asked Richard, "How was your father captured?" After hearing Sabretooth's question, Richard briefly explained how his original father was captured, and by the way, he told about his dissolution of Crimson Manor. After answering Sabretooth's question, he asked Sabretooth back, "What do you want to see my father about?" "I have some private matters to deal with, and I want your father to help take care of Clarice for a while." "It seems that there is no need now." Sabretooth sighed helplessly. Although Sabretooth didn't say what private matters he was going to deal with, Richard didn't ask, but wondered why Sabretooth didn't send Clarice to the mutant school. Not to mention that Wolverine is now in the mutant school. Even if Wolverine is not there, sending Clarice to the mutant school is better than sending her to the Crimson Manor. Crimson Manor is just a small organization with no reputation. Whether in terms of reputation or strength, it is far inferior to the mutant school. The mutant school is too far away. It takes a long way across the United States to get there. I don't have that much time. Speaking of this, Sabretooth paused for a moment, and a new plan immediately popped up in his mind. Your father was arrested, and you disbanded Crimson Manor. More importantly, you killed people from the Mutant Affairs Department. Although you have good strength, you are still too weak to compete with the Mutant Affairs Department. Before Sabretooth finished speaking, Richard interrupted him and frowned and said, "You want me to take Clarice to the mutant school?" Sabretooth did not deny it, and immediately replied, "You were right, I do plan to do so. Although you and Clarice are not registered, you are illegal mutants. But as long as you agree to help me with this, I promise that you can join the mutant school. You should know Wolverine in the X-Men, he is my younger brother. Half-brother, and he doesn't even remember that you are his brother's younger brother." Richard complained in his heart. "Sorry, I don't plan to join the mutant school." Richard shook his head. Although Professor X and Wolverine are not bad guys, neither the X-Men nor the mutant school are suitable for him now. For him who has the ability of plundering, it is not a good choice to spend the novice period in the mutant school. Continuously hunting mutants and plundering superpowers from these mutants is the most suitable way for him to become stronger. Although the same type of superpowers are fused and strengthened, he has already had 8 X-gene superpowers in less than half a day after crossing into this world. At this rate of development, it won't be long before the number of his superpowers will exceed 100. Only by joining the mutant school can you have the opportunity to become an X-Men. Are you not interested in the X-Men? Sabretooth continued. From this morning till now, I have killed 8 mutants and 20 ordinary people. For an illegal mutant like me, it's good enough that I'm not hunted by the X-Men, let alone joining the X-Men. If you have nothing else to do, I'll take my leave first. It's nice to meet you too. Enjoy it slowly. After that, Richard took out $100 from the system space and put it on the table. Then, under the gaze of Sabretooth and Clarice, he got up and left the cafe. After leaving the cafe, he kept flashing and found a used car dealership that did not require registration information, and bought a used C-type RV in good condition. After spending a little more money, he repaired the used RV in the maintenance area of the used car dealership and then drove away from the car dealership. After leaving the car dealership, he drove to a supermarket and bought a week's worth of living supplies and then drove towards Los Angeles. Although his final destination was Los Angeles, he did not plan to drive the RV directly into downtown Los Angeles. Before entering the city, he planned to stay in the RV camp outside the city for a few days to practice his skills. Thinking of this, he opened the attribute panel and looked at the current skill proficiency in magic. Skills: 8 Swords Flash Level 1, 12 100ths Earthquake Level 1, 3 100ths Sky Shock Level 1, 0 100ths Zankson Level 1, 3 100ths II/ Level 1, 0 100ths Thunderbolt Level 1, 1 100th Blizzard Level 1, 0 100ths. Magic: 23 points. Counting the number of times he practiced 8 Swords Flash, he has performed 8 Swords Flash 12 times, Earthquake 3 times, Zankson 3 times, and Thunderbolt 1 time so far. Because these skills are all level 1, they consume 1 point of magic each time. If we only look at the number of times the skills are used, he should have 11 points of magic left. But he still has 23 points of magic now. The consumed mana will gradually recover through rest and eating. Judging from the situation this morning, it will only take 5 or 6 hours for him to fully recover the consumed mana. Richard didn't know that when he drove his newly bought second-hand RV to the RV camp, several videos related to him appeared on the internet. Not only that, the number of views of these videos has now reached hundreds of thousands. Although the shooting angles of these videos are different, the content of the videos is exactly the same. His fight with Anessa and others did not last long. But even so, many customers in the restaurant still used their mobile phones to record the scene of him killing Anessa, the 3 people in the special forces. A handsome silver-haired young man, holding a silver-white samurai sword more than 2 meters long, harvested the lives of mutant agents and special forces like the god of death. Gorgeous moves, fierce attacks, calm expressions, coupled with handsome looks and amazingly long samurai swords. As soon as these videos were uploaded, they caused a sensation on the internet. Is this the latest sci-fi action movie? Silver hair and silver sword, this outfit is really cool. Does anyone know where this is? Is this really not a special effect? I can't even play such a smooth combo when playing action games. Who said mutants are all freaks? If mutants look like this, I don't mind my future boyfriend and husband being mutants. It's been almost half an hour, and no one knows who this person is. This generation of netizens is so disappointing. Strongly request that the male lead of future movies be selected according to this standard. The netizens who watched the video posted comments crazily, making these videos more and more popular, soaring towards 1 million views. However, Richard, the protagonist of the video, not only does not know about this, but is also thinking about a very important thing. That is, what should he do to quickly improve the fusion degree of Sephiroth's template? Although he has plundered a lot of superpowers, his current Sephiroth template fusion degree is still only 5%. Compared with the superpowers he plundered, the power given by Sephiroth's template is his most important trump card. Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department. The staff responsible for monitoring online public opinion and information soon discovered these videos that were wildly discussed by netizens. Without any hesitation, the staff who discovered these videos immediately contacted their supervisor. Not long after, the black supervisor in charge of managing the mutant agents of the Los Angeles branch received an email from the intelligence director. Chapter 11. After seeing the internal email sent by the intelligence director, the black director's already dark face turned even darker. Inisa and others were completely wiped out. Unlike other netizens, after seeing the live footage taken by the restaurant customers on their mobile phones, what came to the mind of the black supervisor was not whether Richard was handsome or not, but what came to mind when Anisha and the others fell into the Crimson Manor. Prepare for the trap. Although the only people in the video who took action were Richard and Saber-Toothed Tiger, the black supervisor was still the first to suspect the Crimson Manor. As for why the other mutants in Crimson Manor didn't take action, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that Richard, a member of the Crimson Manor, killed Anisha and others. After watching these videos with a cold expression, the black supervisor immediately picked up the phone on the table and dialed the internal number of the intelligence director. Contact the website to delete these videos, now, immediately. The black supervisor said in a serious tone. Although they are both department heads, the authority and status of the head of the operations department is obviously much higher than that of the head of intelligence. After hearing what the black supervisor said, the intelligence supervisor on the other end of the phone immediately replied, "Okay, I will arrange for someone to contact the website." After contacting the intelligence director, the black supervisor hung up the phone and dialed a second internal number. Inform the first and second groups and ask them to come to the conference room immediately. After saying that, without waiting for the person on the other end of the phone to reply, the black supervisor hung up the phone, got up and walked towards the conference room. After a few minutes, Operations Department conference room. More than a dozen mutant agents from the Operations Department sat on both sides of the long table, looking at the black supervisor sitting at the head of the long table without saying a word. Under the gaze of everyone, the strong black supervisor said with a serious expression, "The three of Anisha are dead, killed by Richard Wesley." After saying that, the black supervisor asked the secretary to play the hot videos downloaded by the intelligence department from the internet. Although the video is not long, not even a minute. But after watching these videos, the mutant agents in the conference room all showed solemn expressions. As companions in the same department, they know very well what kind of strength the three of Anisha have. Slater and Byrne wouldn't be particularly surprised if they were killed. Because Slater and Byrne are not very strong to begin with, the superpowers they possess are only very common super strength, super physique, and self-healing factor. But Anisha, who had bounce, flash, and psychic charm, was also killed, and she was killed by a mutant who had just awakened her superpowers for a few days, which was a bit unacceptable. Although Inisa's character is a bit bad, it cannot be denied that she does have very good strength. Otherwise, her combat effectiveness would not be among the top 5 in the operations department. But now, Inisa was killed by Richard easily like an ordinary person. This was a difficult thing to accept for the mutant agents in the conference room. If even Inisa can't hold on for too long in front of Richard, then they will only behave even worse when facing Richard. Is there something wrong with the intelligence? Judging from the performance on the video, Richard Wesley doesn't look like he has just awakened his superpower. After watching the video, Bert, the leader of the second team, said quickly, "Richard Wesley has not awakened his superpowers. His father personally confessed this. I don't think his father can lie in front of the interrogators of the intelligence department." Before the black supervisor could answer, the voice of the group leader Aiden rang out. Although they are colleagues in the same department, the relationship between Aiden and Belt is not good. On the one hand, this is because there is direct competition between the first group and the second group. On the other hand, it's because their superpowers are inherently incompatible. Aiden has the ability to control fire, while Belt has the superpower to create low temperatures and freezing. One fire and one ice. Although the type of superpower awakened has nothing to do with personality, it is normal for them to dislike each other when their superpowers are completely opposite. There is no problem with the information given by the intelligence department. This Richard Wesley must have awakened his superpower in the past few days. Judging from the performance in the video, the katana he summoned was no ordinary katana, and he also showed the ability to flash and release energy blades. More importantly, he easily defeated Inisa. Now, I have reason to suspect that he is a level 4 mutant, so I decided to issue a level A wanted order for him. Class A wanted order. After hearing the black supervisor's words, Aiden and others showed surprised expressions. Although the A-level warrant is not the highest level for mutant criminals, those who can allow the Department of Mutant Affairs to issue an A-level warrant are, without exception, all-powerful mutants with a prominent reputation. In the view of Aiden and others, using a Class A warrant to arrest Richard would be a bit of a fuss. It is not that the Department of Mutant Affairs has never had its agents killed, but generally speaking, issuing a Class B arrest warrant is more than enough. Unless it has been determined that the other party has a strength that far exceeds that of ordinary mutants, or has committed an extremely heinous crime. Otherwise, Class A warrants will generally not be issued. After all, this is the most wanted poster second only to S-Class. Currently, the Department of Mutant Affairs has only issued one S-Class arrest warrant, and that was for Magneto. The black supervisor ignored Aiden and others' surprise and continued. In order to prevent the department's agents from being killed again, this time, Group 1 and Group 2 will act at the same time. Whether it is Richard Wesley, Sabretooth Victor, or the woman next to Sabretooth and other people in Crimson Manor, catch them all. If anyone resists, kill them all. I want to let those illegal mutants outside know that those who resist the Mutant Affairs Department will die. The black supervisor stood up and glanced at everyone in the conference room with a cold expression. Yes, sir. After hearing the black supervisor's words, Aiden, Belt and others quickly replied. Suburbs of Los Angeles. An ordinary RV campsite with few tourists. There are many RV campsites in the suburbs of Los Angeles. There are more than a dozen or 20 that the original body knows. Although he knows many RV campsites, Richard did not choose those popular campsites, but specially chose a campsite with few tourists. At this time, he didn't know that the fight between him and Anessa and others was filmed and uploaded by the restaurant's customers, nor did he know that he had caused quite a stir on the internet, and he didn't know that he had an A-level wanted order on him. After parking the RV in a corner of the camp, he left the camp without saying a word and came to the nearby forest. After confirming that there were no other people around, he summoned the authentic sword from the system space. 8 swords flash proficiency +1. 8 swords flash proficiency +1. 8 swords flash proficiency +1. Without any hesitation, he immediately practiced 8 swords flash. Not long after, he used up all the magic power in his body. Skill: 8 swords flash level 1, 36 100ths. After taking a look at the current proficiency of 8 swords flash, he began to browse the flying superpower looted from Anessa. Flying, beta level superpower, can bounce any object, including but not limited to solids, liquids, gases, energy, etc. Like the plunder ability, the system only has a short sentence to explain the rebound energy. Although there is not much content, it is enough for him to know what kind of ability it is. Judging from Ines' performance, she deflected the slash of the authentic sword in the restaurant by directly deflecting the authentic sword itself. And the shock wave released outside the restaurant materialized and compressed the air in front of her, and then deflected the compressed air as a shock wave. As for why she couldn't deflect the 8 swords flash later, Richard guessed that it was because the 8 swords flash used magic. Although the system explained that rebound can deflect any object, as long as you look at the level of rebound, you can know that rebound has an upper limit. If it is an attack that exceeds the upper limit of rebound, such as the 8 Swords Flash performed by magic, it can be immune or hit Inisa before being deflected. From the actual effect, Rebound is a very good superpower. But unfortunately, Rebound is only a beta level ability. If you don't plunder a superpower of the same type as Fly, the upper limit of Fly will not be particularly high. Turning off the information panel that only he could see, Richard practiced his superpowers while waiting for his magic to recover. He now has a total of 8 X-Gene superpowers. Among them, the 5 abilities of Plunder, Super Strength, Super Physique, Super Self-Healing, and Mind Isolation do not need to be practiced. As for the remaining Flash, Mind Charm, and Bounce, only Flash and Bounce need to be practiced. Although Mind Charm also needs practice to be proficient, he does not have a suitable practice target now. More importantly, Mind Charm is not suitable for frontal combat. After thinking for a while, Richard decided to start practicing with Bounce. He had already used Flash in battle, and he used it quite skillfully. Even if he did not practice now, it would not have much impact. Without any hesitation, he immediately started practicing Bounce. First, it was an egg-sized stone, then a fist-sized stone, and finally a large stone weighing dozens of kilograms. In addition to solid stones, the river water in the river and the air everywhere also became his practice targets. As the ability to bounce back continued to be used, the stones, river water, leaves, air, etc. around him were constantly bounced away. After practicing for more than half an hour, he found that it was most convenient to compress the air and bounce it away. Not only was air everywhere, but the power of the bounce could also be adjusted at any time according to one's needs. Time flew by. Several hours had passed before he knew it. He looked up at the sun gradually setting, and opened the system panel to check his magic power. Magic. 19. Recover 5 points of magic power in an hour. After finding that the speed of magic power recovery was about the same as he expected, he smiled with satisfaction. According to the current magic power recovery speed, he will be able to upgrade 8 Swords Flash to level 2 tomorrow. Although his magic power has not been fully recovered, he did not hesitate to summon the authentic sword again and continued to practice 8 Swords Flash. 8 Swords Flash Proficiency +1. 8 Swords Flash Proficiency +1. Soon, 19 points of magic power were consumed by him. After using up the magic power he had just recovered, he took a look at the current proficiency of 8 Swords and 1 Flash. Skill: 8 Swords and 1 Flash Level 1, 55/100ths. The proficiency is more than half. Very good. Putting away the authentic knife, Richard flashed and left the forest. After several flashes, he went straight back to the RV. After a simple wash in the small bathroom of the RV, he began to prepare dinner for himself tonight. Soon, he prepared a steak and pasta for himself. Although the steak and pasta he prepared were not delicious, he was still quite satisfied. As a novice in cooking, it was good enough to be able to make these things. What else do you want? After dinner, he began to rest. When all the magic power was restored, he flashed out of the RV and came to the forest to continue practicing 8 Swords and 1 Flash. At noon the next day, 8 Swords and 1 Flash Proficiency +1. As the system voice sounded in his mind, the upgrade information of 8 Swords and 1 Flash also appeared in his sight. 8 Swords and 1 Flash Upgrade. 8 Swords Flash Level 2, 0/500ths. Finally upgraded. Looking at the upgrade information in front of him, Richard sighed in his heart. Then, he used the 8 Swords Flash that had been upgraded to level 2. 8 Swords Flash Proficiency +1. Although the system did not explain in detail what changes would happen after the 8 Swords Flash was upgraded to level 2, after performing a level 2 8 Swords Flash, he immediately knew what was different about the level 2 8 Swords Flash. It was faster and more powerful. Not only that, it also consumed more mana. Just after performing a level 2 8 Swords Flash, Richard found that he had lost 3 points of mana. However, because of the upgrade of 8 Swords Flash, his total mana increased a lot. Magic. 18/50ths 8 points restored per hour. His mana limit was originally 30, but now it has been increased to 50. In addition to the increase in the mana limit to 50 points, his mana recovery rate also increased from 5 points per hour to 8 points per hour. Although the magic power limit has been increased, the total number of times he can perform 8 Swords Flash has been reduced by nearly half. 8 Swords Flash at level 1 only consumes 1 point of magic power, and he can perform it up to 30 times, while he can only perform 8 Swords Flash at level 2 16 times. If he is in battle, he can freely choose to perform 8 Swords Flash at level 1 or level 2. Not only that, as the level continues to increase, he can also freely control the output of magic power. For example, use 2 points of magic power to perform 8 Swords Flash with a power between level 1 and level 2. But now, he can't do this. The improvement of skill proficiency is different, and skills of corresponding levels must be used. To put it simply, even if he performs 8 Swords Flash at level 1 thousands of times, the proficiency of 8 Swords Flash will not continue to improve. If he wants to continue to upgrade, he can only perform 8 Swords Flash at level 2. After thinking about it, he decided to stop practicing 8 Swords Flash. With a total of 50 points of magic power, the proficiency of the level 2 8 Swords Flash can only be increased by 16 points at most. But if he practices other level 1 skills, such as Earth Shaking, Zanshin, Heaven Shaking, etc., the proficiency can be increased by 50 points. First, upgrade other skills to level 2, and continue to increase the total amount of magic. When all skills are upgraded to level 2 and have enough total magic, continue to upgrade the level of 8 Swords Flash. After making a plan for the next practice, Richard began to practice Zanshin, which can release crescent-shaped sword energy. Zanshin Proficiency +1. Zanshin Proficiency +1. Zanshin Proficiency +1. Time flies. 3 days passed unknowingly. During these 3 days, Richard was either practicing Sephiroth's skills or practicing the flying superpower. Skills: 8 Swords Flash level 2, 1/500th Earthquake level 2, 1/500th Sky Shock level 1, 0/100th Zanshin level 2, 1/500th II/ level 1, 86/100th Thunderbolt level 2, 1/500th Blizzard level 2, 1/500th. Magic: 54/150ths recovers 25 points per hour. Compared to when he first crossed over, he now not only has 5 level 2 skills, but also has a total magic power that has increased 5 times. In addition to the upgrade of skills and magic power, he has also undergone some other changes. After only 3 days, his short silver hair turned into long silver hair. Although it is far from the level of Sephiroth, it also meets the standard of long hair for men. If the rapid growth of hair was beyond his expectations, then the improvement of template proficiency was within his expectations. Current template: Sephiroth Fusion Degree 10%. As his skills and magic power improved, his template fusion degree increased from the initial 5% to 10%. Although it is still far from 100%, this improvement speed is not bad. At least he is quite satisfied. II/proficiency +1. II/proficiency +1. II/upgrade. II/level 2, 0/500ths. After consuming 16 points of magic power and upgrading II/ to level 2, Richard was ready to end this morning's practice. Except for the 4/ Zontian, performed in the air, which was still level 1, all other skills were upgraded to level 2. For him who had just crossed into this world a few days ago, this was already a very good progress. Just as he was about to perform the level 2 II/ to see what changes there were in the upgraded II/, new system information appeared in his sight. Mission: Son of the Devil I. Mission content: kill all mutant agents in the RV camp. Mission reward: Dimensional Slash. Mission time limit: 1 hour. Dimension Slash of Yama Blade. Although he has not read the detailed description given by the system, when he saw the Demon Child and Dimension Slash appear together, the first thing that came to Richard's mind was Yama Blade's Dimension Slash. Without any hesitation, he immediately opened the detailed description of Dimension Slash. Sure enough, as he guessed, the Dimension Slash rewarded by the task is Yama Blade's signature skill Dimension Slash. Does this mean that my next template is Virgil's template? Richard doesn't think that the system will use Yama Blade's Dimension Slash as a task reward for no reason. Virgil's template is not bad either, especially the true demon form. Although he can't be sure whether his next template is Virgil's template, he still likes Virgil quite a lot. This is Pawawa. When he played the Devil May Cry game before crossing over, he used Virgil a lot to practice. Subject 1. Although he has never played the smooth, pleasing, and tile-throwing, Subject 1, like the game masters, this does not affect his love for Virgil and Dimension Slash. However, he is now very curious about how he can perform Dimension Slash without the Yama blade. In terms of sharpness, the authentic sword is not much worse than the Yama blade. But the problem is that the authentic sword does not have the separation and space-cutting ability of the Yama blade. And Dimension Slash is the perfect embodiment of the separation and space-cutting ability of the Yama blade. Although he does not know how the system will reward Dimension Slash at that time, he did not waste too many brain cells thinking about this problem. Dimension Slash can be a task reward, which means that the system must have a way for him to use Dimension Slash without the Yama blade. If he can't even do this, then the system he has is too bad. Turning off the task panel, Richard took a look at his current magic power. Magic. 4170ths, recover 28 points per hour. II/ has been upgraded to level 2, and his total magic power and magic power recovery speed have also been improved accordingly. Although there are only 40 points of magic left, it is enough for him to complete the task now. Without any hesitation, he cast Flash and left the forest. Unlike the previous few days, he did not flash directly back to the RV, but flashed to a big tree that overlooked the RV. After flashing to the big tree, he soon saw the mutant agents surrounding the RV. 12. These 12 mutant agents surrounded the RV from 4 directions, with exactly 3 people in each direction. In addition to these 12 mutant agents, he also saw many fully armed soldiers and 2 familiar faces nearby. Saber-Tooth Tiger Victor, and Flash Clarice. They also wore collars around their necks that specifically suppressed mutant superpowers. Although he didn't know how they were caught, after seeing them being taken to the RV camp, Richard immediately guessed the purpose of the mutant agents bringing them here. It was obvious that these mutant agents regarded Saber-Tooth and Clarice as his companions and intended to use them to threaten him. After standing on the tree and thinking for a while, he once again used Flash and flashed directly to the roof of the RV. It took 3 days to lock my position. It seems that the efficiency of the Mutant Affairs Department is not as high as the news said. Richard glanced at the mutant agents around him calmly. After seeing him flash to the roof of the RV and mock the Mutant Affairs Department, Aiden, Belt and others immediately became alert and looked at him with a vigilant face. Although they are all mutants, they have no good feelings towards Richard and his kind who do not abide by the Mutant Restriction Act. In their opinion, it is precisely because of the existence of mutants like Richard who do not abide by the law that mutants have always been discriminated against by normal people. Neither Aiden nor Belt, nor any other mutant agent, answered Richard. Or rather, they answered Richard with their actual actions. Aiden and Belt used their superpowers at the same time and took the lead in attacking. Aiden, who had the ability to control fire, raised his right hand and aimed his palm at Richard on the roof of the RV. The next second, a dragon-like orange-red flame gushed out of his palm and attacked Richard at high speed. At the same time, Belt, who was on his left hand, also released a biting cold air. The high-temperature flame and the icy cold air rushed towards him from the left and right at the same time. Flash. Without any hesitation, Richard decisively performed the flash. Although his super physique had been strengthened, he did not like to stay in place and resist Aiden and Belt's attacks. Boom! The orange-red flame and the white cold air failed to hit Richard, and they collided fiercely, exploding like a bomb. The explosion was so loud that it spread to most of the RV campsite. The shock wave from the explosion, along with the dissipated flames and cold air, blew a big hole in the roof of the RV, and at the same time, the interior of the RV became a mess. Richard did not care about the situation of the RV. He instantly flashed behind Aiden and attacked Aiden's neck with the authentic knife. Just when the authentic knife was about to cut Aiden's neck, a white man over 2 meters tall stood in front of the authentic knife and used his body as Aiden's shield. Ding! The authentic knife that should have cut Aiden's neck chopped the white man's body. To be precise, it was the white man whose body had become like a rock. Rock body. After seeing the white man's body instantly change from flesh and blood to rock, Richard turned his wrist and took back the authentic knife. Earth shaking. Richard performed 4 consecutive slashes as fast as lightning. The white man didn't know the difference between earth-shaking and ordinary slashes, and stood there unmoved, intending to use his rock body with amazing defensive power to resist Richard's earth-shaking. But soon, he showed an incredible expression. Chi 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 chi. Unlike before, the authentic knife easily broke through his defense and cut through his body like cutting a cake. How is this possible? Although he had seen the scene of Richard easily cutting through an armored vehicle with an authentic knife in the video on the internet, he still didn't think that Richard's authentic knife could easily kill himself with a rock body. Under normal circumstances, rocks are indeed not as hard as steel. But his rock body is not comparable to the armor of an armored vehicle. After joining the Mutant Affairs Department, he tested the defense of his rock body in detail at the request of the staff. Among them was a test of attacking him with anti-tank weapons. The test results showed that even if he was attacked by anti-tank rockets 5 or 6 times in a row, he would not suffer obvious damage. However, now, the rock body that can withstand the attack of anti-tank rockets was easily cut by Richard with an authentic knife. The white man fell down with a face full of unwillingness, and he couldn't understand why Richard's authentic knife suddenly became so sharp until his death. Richard ignored the white man who was completely dead and flashed away. Although the white man with a rock body was killed, he still bought enough time for Aiden with his life. At the moment when the white man fell to the ground, Aiden released the orange-red flame again. When Richard's figure completely disappeared, the orange-red flame like a wave hit the place where he had just stood. Richard, who flashed away, did not continue to attack the nearby mutant agents, but flashed to the outside of the encirclement. Before plundering Inisha's flash, his flash distance was only about 100 meters. Now, his flash distance is more than 500 meters. If you just look at the numbers, the flash distance of more than 500 meters is not particularly far. But for ordinary battles, this flash distance is completely enough. After flashing to the outside of the encirclement, Richard did not hesitate, raised his authentic sword with his left hand and waved it casually. Kanshin. As the Jungzong knife fell, 6 crescent-shaped sword energy formed by magic power flew out from the Jungzong knife's blade and flew towards the Special Forces team members in front of them at high speed. Although these Special Forces members were carefully selected from the U.S. military by the Department of Mutant Affairs. But in front of mutants who are good at fighting, they are no different from ordinary people without any military training. Not to mention Richard, even a saber-toothed tiger could easily harvest their lives as long as he could get close to them. The crescent-shaped sword energy, which was ultraviolet on the outside and white on the inside, arrived in front of these Special Forces members in the blink of an eye. It cut through their corpses as easily as it cut through a cream cake, turning them into corpses of different sizes. After upgrading to level 2, the crescent-shaped sword energy created by Kanshin not only flies faster, but also has stronger cutting ability. The body armor worn by the Special Forces team members was no different from paper in front of the crescent sword energy. With just one move of Kanshin, Richard killed 6 Special Forces members. After killing these 6 Special Forces members, he used Flash again and disappeared. For him who is already proficient in using Flash in battle, the most suitable tactic for him is to continuously use Flash to defeat them one by one. Soon, gunshots and screams rang out from every corner of the RV campground. Although the mission requirement is to kill all mutant agents in the RV camp, Richard is not in a hurry to deal with these mutant agents. The mission time limit given by the system is 1 hour. He plans to clean up these Special Forces members first, and then slowly deal with the mutant agents. In this way, he can also avoid having these Special Forces members shoot at him from a distance when he is fighting mutant agents. First clean up the mobs, then deal with the elite monsters, and finally the boss battle. Although he is not playing a game now, it does not affect his use of this tactic. After hearing the gunshots that kept ringing out from all corners of the RV camp, Aiden, Belt and others guessed Richard's purpose. However, as you may have guessed, this does not mean that they are now capable of preventing Richard from killing these Special Forces members. Flashing is indeed not a particularly rare X-gene superpower. But the problem is, none of them will. To be more precise, in the Los Angeles branch of the Department of Mutant Affairs, there are only 2 mutants who can flash. One is Inisha, who has been killed by Richard, and the other is the head of the Los Angeles branch. Although none of them could flash, Aiden and Bert had already guessed that Richard would use Flash to defeat them one by one. Without any hesitation, Aiden immediately said to the agents guarding Sabertooth Tiger and Clarice, "Bring them both here." After hearing his words, Sabertooth Tiger and Clarice were immediately brought to him. Then, he grabbed Sabertooth Tiger by the shoulders and said to Clarice, "Tell Richard Wesley to stop, or I will burn your adoptive father to death immediately." At the beginning, Aiden and the others were not very clear about the relationship between Clarice and Sabertooth Tiger. Although Sabertooth Tiger was on the wanted list of the Department of Mutant Affairs early on. But the intelligence branch of the Department of Mutant Affairs never knew that Sabertooth adopted Clarice. To be more precise, if the saber-toothed tiger hadn't happened to appear in the video taken by a restaurant customer, Aiden and the others would not have known that the saber-toothed tiger had arrived in California. After saying that, Aiden immediately summoned the flame and let the flame cover his right hand. Sizzling. The saber-toothed tiger's shoulders were burned by the flames summoned by Aiden, making a sizzling sound like barbecue. If the person being burned by the flames was not the saber-toothed tiger, but someone else, he must have let out a miserable howl by now. But saber-toothed tiger proved with practical actions what a real tough guy is. Although there was a strong burning pain in his shoulder, the saber-toothed tiger not only did not scream, but also had a look of disdain on his face. Just when Clarice couldn't bear Saber-Toothed Tiger's continued torture and was about to speak according to Aiden's instructions, Saber-Toothed Tiger's voice rang out. "You have the nerve to threaten people with this little flame. The fire I used to light my cigar is bigger than yours." The Saber-Toothed Tiger taunted Aiden with disdain. After hearing the Saber-Toothed Tiger's taunt, Aiden, who was already in a bad mood, immediately said, "Since you want to die, then I will make it happen." As soon as he finished speaking, the flames burning the saber-toothed tiger expanded with a roar, from burning his right shoulder to burning his entire chest. Just as the flames spread toward the saber-toothed tiger's neck and legs, Aiden suddenly remembered something and dispersed the flames on the saber-toothed tiger. "Want to provoke me into burning the collar around your neck? Stop being delusional. With this collar on, you're just an old dog." After saying that, Aiden kicked the saber-toothed tiger, whose chest and shoulders were severely burned, to the ground, and his eyes fell on Clarice's face. "Your adoptive father was burned, and you didn't speak. Your own face was burned, I don't believe you won't speak." As soon as the voice fell, Aiden raised his right hand, and a small flame appeared on his index finger. Just as he was about to use the flame on his right index finger to force Clarice to speak, Richard's voice came from more than 20 meters behind him. "You used disfigurement to threaten an underage girl. Are the people in the Mutant Affairs Department as scum as you?" Although only more than 10 seconds had passed, this time was enough for him to kill the special forces on the periphery one by one. Aiden ignored Richard's ridicule and summoned a fist-sized fireball with his right hand. "Throw away the knife in your hand, or I will kill her immediately." After hearing Aiden's threat, Richard smiled and shook his head. He switched the authentic knife to his right hand, held the handle of the authentic knife with his backhand, and walked towards Aiden slowly as if taking a walk. Although his speed was very slow, Aiden, Belt and others immediately became alert. As Richard walked towards Aiden, he said calmly, "Including this time, I have only met her twice. I can't do such a stupid thing as throwing away my weapon for someone I have only met twice. If you want to kill her, then do it quickly and don't waste everyone's time." "What?" After hearing his words, Aiden, Belt and others, Clarice and Sabertooth all showed unexpected expressions. Although he didn't know whether Richard was playing psychological tactics with him, Aiden didn't waste brain cells thinking about this problem. After seeing that Richard didn't intend to throw away the ridiculously long authentic knife in his hand, he decisively raised his right hand and prepared to attack Clarice with the fireball floating on his right hand. However, at this moment, Richard, who was walking towards him, disappeared in an instant. Flash. After seeing Richard disappear, Aiden and others thought he had used Flash. However, this was not the case. Richard was not using Flash, but II/. To be precise, it was a level 2 II/. In the game, Sephiroth's II/ is an aerial version of Zanshin. But the II/ given by the system is not the same as in the game. II/. Rush forward like teleportation, and kill the enemy in front of you with lightning speed. After testing, Richard found that the II/ in Sephiroth's template is very similar to Virgil's running II. If there is any difference, it is that Virgil's running ii is a true instant unsheathing of the sword. And the ii/ he has mastered now, because there is no scabbard, so he only needs to hold the knife in the opposite hand. Tisk. Just as Belt and the others were observing their surroundings with vigilance, guarding against Richard suddenly appearing around to attack them, Aidan, who was standing in front of Clarice, fell to the ground with a thud. Aidan's right hand was cut off at the root, and his head was separated from his neck, flying high with blood splashing. Richard appeared behind Aidan's body with an authentic knife in his left hand. After seeing Aidan's body with his head and body separated, Belden and others showed surprised expressions. Although they knew that Richard had the ability to flash, flashing does not mean invincibility. Whether it is to use flash to leave or to use flash to attack the enemy, there will be a certain reaction time. Take Anessa for example. Anessa has realized that there is a big difference between Richard's 8 swords and 1 flash and ordinary slash. But she still failed to use flash to avoid the attack of 8 swords and 1 flash. This is not because she is not proficient in flashing, but because she missed the opportunity to use flash to leave. That's why she couldn't use flash, and the authentic sword had hit her body. If she didn't despise Richard so much, but was very alert from the beginning, Richard might not be able to kill her so easily. After all, Richard had just crossed over a few hours ago and didn't have a level 2 skill. It is precisely because she knows that whether it is to use flash to leave or to use flash to attack, there will be a certain reaction time. Only after seeing Aidan instantly turned into a body with his head and body separated, Bert and the others found it incredible. Although Aidan did not have the ability to flash, he had fought with Inessa many times during the internal training of the operations department. To put it simply, Aidan knew very well how to deal with other people's flash attacks. However, now, he was killed instantly by Richard. Not to mention blocking Richard's attack, he couldn't even launch the fireball in his hand. Bert and the others found it incredible, but Richard was not surprised. Because at a distance of 10 to 20 meters, the attack speed of ii/ is indeed much faster than flash. To use the words in the game, ii/ has no pre-casting swing. Even if Aidan had rich experience, he would not have thought that he did not perform flash but ii/ when he disappeared instantly. After killing Aidan with ii/, Richard swung the authentic knife in his hand towards Clarice and Sabretooth. Swish, swish, a silver line passed by, and the suppression collars on Clarice and Sabretooth's necks were cut off and fell off their necks. Without the suppression collar, Sabretooth's super self-healing ability immediately took effect, quickly repairing the burns on his body. After cutting off the suppression collars on Clarice and Sabretooth's necks, Richard didn't waste any more time and raised his right hand. Thunderbolt. Boom. He raised his right hand and waved it casually, and dozens of large and small silver-white lightnings fell from the sky and attacked Belden and others at a high speed. Although the Thunderbolt had been upgraded to level 2 by him, he did not expect the Thunderbolt to easily take the lives of Belden and others. The reason why he used the Thunderbolt was just to distract their attention. After Aidan and the white man with a rock body died, there were still 10 mutant agents left at the scene. Although he didn't know what superpowers other people had except Belden, Richard would not give them the opportunity to easily release their superpowers to attack him. As he guessed, under the lightning attack of the Big Thunder, Belden and the others immediately became flustered. Some of them released their superpowers to protect themselves, while others began to dodge around, trying to use flexible movement to dodge the lightning attack from the sky. Although Belt and the others used different countermeasures, for Richard, no matter what countermeasures they used, his goal was achieved. While continuously outputting magic power to maintain the Big Thunder, he once again performed the flash and disappeared in an instant. The next second, he came to the 2 mutant agents like a ghost. Earth shaking. Without any hesitation, the authentic knife in his hand was swung out, and the gorgeous 4-cut slash was instantly slashed, attacking the 2 mutant agents. Swish. The sharp authentic knife easily cut through their bodies, chopping the 2 mutant agents into pieces of meat of varying sizes. After killing the 2 mutant agents, Richard's figure disappeared again. Silver-white lightning of varying thicknesses continued to fall from the endless clear sky. The sound of thunder that came one after another soon resounded throughout the RV camp. In the continuous thunder, there were also miserable screams. Thunder, screams, footsteps, the tearing of flesh and bones. The completely different sounds together formed a symphony called Death. At this time, Richard was like a conductor in a symphony orchestra. The extremely sharp authentic knife was the baton in his hand, controlling the rhythm and presentation of the symphony of death. Splashing blood, strong bloody smell, and broken limbs scattered all over the ground. The symphony of death played and controlled by Richard himself lasted only more than 10 seconds before it suddenly stopped. When all the sounds disappeared, the mutant agents sent to capture him all turned into corpses on the ground, ending their lives in unwillingness, panic, and regret. Richard ignored the corpse on the ground, and ignored the shocked Clarice and Sabretooth, and quietly used his plundering superpowers. Gain new abilities. Control of fire, freezing, rock body, energy absorption, ion shock wave, super strength, super physique, super self-healing, beast intuition, super 5 senses, mind movement. Gain the same type of ability, ability fusion. Super strength, super physique, and super self-healing are enhanced. Controlling flames can be converted into the skill, Big Flame. Is it converted? Freezing can strengthen the skill, Big Blizzard. Is it strengthened? Looking at the system information in front of him, Richard immediately chose, yes, without any hesitation. Skill Flame awakens. Skill Blizzard has been strengthened and its level has been improved. Big Blizzard Level 3, 1/2000. X-Gene Super Power Content updated. X-Gene Superpowers. Plunder, Super Strength, Super Physique, Super Self-Healing, Flash, Psychic Isolation, Psychic Charm, Bounce, Rock Body, Energy Absorption, Ion Shock Wave, Beast Intuition, Super 5 Senses, Teleportation. Although 12 mutant agents were killed, Richard only plundered 11 superpowers this time. The superpowers of several mutant agents are repetitive super strength, super physique, and super self-healing. Not counting the fusion-enhanced abilities of the same type and the control of flames transformed into the Big Flame skill, he only got 6 new abilities in the end. Richard didn't particularly care about these 6 new abilities. Now he only cares about when the system will reward him with Dimension Slash. As soon as this thought came to his mind, the message that the mission was completed appeared in his sight. The mission, Devil's Son 1, has been completed. The mission reward Dimension Slash has been sent. Skill Dimension Slash awakens. Without any hesitation, Richard immediately opened the Attributes panel and looked at the Skills column. Dimensional Slash. Level 1, 1/100th. When his eyes fell on Dimensional Slash, the system immediately gave an introduction to Dimensional Slash. Dimensional Slash. A skill derived from the Yan Demon Sword, which distorts the space around the target and continuously attacks the enemy with super powerful slashes that tear apart the space. As before, the system's introduction was as brief as ever. However, this was enough for Richard to know that the Dimension Slash he had now was no different from the Dimension Slash he had in mind. First, the most obvious point was that he didn't have the Yama blade now. Secondly, when using the Yama blade to perform the Dimension Slash, it would be as quick as drawing the sword out of the sheath and handsomely putting it away as when performing the orthodox II slash. Because he now had the orthodox blade instead of the Yama blade, he didn't need to perform the Dimension Slash in the way of II slash. From the introduction given by the system, he only needed to swing the sword directly like performing the skills such as 8 Swords Flash and Earth Shaking. Finally, because the orthodox blade did not have the ability to cut through space like the Yama blade, the Dimension Slash he was performing now might be a little weaker. Whether it was true or not, he couldn't be completely sure at the moment. Only when he got the Yama blade and used the Yama blade and the orthodox blade to perform the Dimension Slash, he could be sure of this. However, even if the Dimension Slash performed by the authentic sword is weaker than that performed by the Yama sword, the Dimension Slash is still not an attack that everyone can resist. Because there is a blood volume setting in the game, before the blood volume is exhausted, no matter what kind of attack it receives, the enemy's body can remain intact. But this is not a game. Not to mention the continuous slashes of the Dimension Slash, even if the body is slashed by the ordinary slashes of the authentic sword, it will still make the enemy lose arms and legs. Turning off the information panel that only he can see, Richard put the authentic sword back into the system space and came to Clarice and the saber-toothed tiger. Then, he said to Clarice, "Make a space door to leave here." "Yeah." Clarice nodded and immediately made a space door that was 1 meter wide and more than 2 meters high. After seeing the space door made by Clarice, an idea suddenly flashed through Richard's mind. If her superpowers were plundered, maybe the dimension slash could be strengthened. Clarice's superpowers are very typical space powers. Although it has no direct attack ability and can only be used to teleport people and objects, or to cut enemies by closing the space gate, it is undoubtedly a space ability anyway. And dimension slash happens to be a space-type skill. From the fact that the freezing superpower can enhance the skill, Big Snow, Clarice's superpower should also be used to enhance dimension slash. Should I plunder her superpower? Richard looked at Clarice unconsciously. Delicate and fair melon seed face, charming temperament, clear and stupid eyes. Clarice didn't know what Richard was thinking, and a puzzled expression appeared on her face. Forget it. Let's find other mutants with space abilities. Richard finally gave up the idea of plundering Clarice's superpowers. Although there are not many mutants with space abilities, they can still be found if they look carefully. Since there are other options, there is no need to be cruel. Under Clarice's gaze, Richard passed through the space gate and came to a hill 20 kilometers away. After he passed through the space gate, Sabretooth and Clarice passed through the space gate one after another. Because Richard did not only say to create a space gate to leave the RV camp, but did not give a specific destination, Clarice used her ability to the current limit. Although she has used her ability to the limit, the farthest distance she can teleport now is about 20 kilometers. Sabretooth is a very qualified adoptive father, but not a qualified teacher. After Clarice closed the space gate, Richard asked Clarice and Sabretooth, "How were you caught?" After hearing his inquiry, Sabretooth immediately explained. "After you left, Clarice and I discussed it and decided to go to the mutant school. We got a car and prepared to drive to the mutant school. As a result, the next morning, we were discovered by agents from the Mutant Affairs Department, and then we were arrested." Driving to the mutant school. After listening to Sabretooth's explanation, Richard frowned slightly. Then, he asked Clarice, "What is the maximum distance of the space gate you are making now? How many space gates with the maximum distance can you make in a day?" Clarice replied without any hesitation. "The current maximum distance of the space gate is about 20 kilometers, and a maximum of 10 can be made in a day. The farthest distance in a day is only 200 kilometers. This development level is a bit low." Richard clearly remembers that the effective transmission range of Clarice in the comics is between the moon and the Earth. To put it simply, it is 380,000 kilometers. Although Clarice in the movie is far less powerful than in the comics, she should be much stronger than the current Clarice. If nothing else, Clarice in the movie can already use the space gate to fight very familiarly. And the current Clarice, do you know how far Los Angeles is from New York? Richard said to Sabretooth. "It should be more than 2,000 kilometers. Sabretooth answered uncertainly. 3,500 kilometers. Even if you drive 500 kilometers a day, it will take you a week to get to the mutant school. I am getting more and more curious about what your so-called private affairs are that made you decide to send Clarice to a mutant school across the entire United States." Richard was not particularly interested at first, but now he is interested. Sabretooth did not answer immediately, but fell silent. After more than 10 seconds, he spoke. "Clone, someone has made a clone of me, and more than one." "What?" Richard and Clarice showed surprised expressions at the same time. Clarice was surprised because Sabretooth had never told her this. Richard was surprised because he thought of Laura, the little wolf girl in the movie Wolverine 3, and X-24, who looked exactly like Wolverine. "Have you seen your clone with your own eyes, or did you hear about it from others?" Richard asked with a frown. Sabretooth did not answer his question and fell silent. Seeing that Sabretooth didn't intend to reveal too much to him, Richard shrugged and said casually, "Since you don't want to say it, forget it. Here's a little advice for you. If you really want to send Clarice to a mutant school, you don't need to go to New York in person. Just call them. Although you are not a law-abiding citizen, the X-Men still have a deep impression of you. In addition, someone is making mutant clones. The X-Men should be very interested. You just need to call them and tell them about it. They will most likely come to you on their own initiative." Although he didn't approve of some of Professor X and the X-Men's practices, Richard had to admit that Professor X and the X-Men had a good character of helping others. If any mutant really got into trouble and came to them, they would generally not refuse the other party's help. Call them. Sabretooth looked at Richard with surprise. Yes, just call them directly. As long as you explain the matter clearly and make it clear that Clarice has the idea of going to the mutant school, they will take the initiative to send someone over. Richard said slowly. Although he didn't have the idea of going to the mutant school, he didn't mind giving Sabretooth and Clarice a little advice. Are you sure this is really okay? Sabretooth still didn't quite believe that the X-Men would send someone to pick up Clarice so easily. I dare not say that they will come 100%, but the probability of them coming is at least more than 80%. Unless you and Clarice did something that angered the heavens and the people. Richard continued. After hearing his explanation, Sabretooth fell silent. After a few seconds, he said, I don't have their contact information. Ah, if you don't have it, go find it. Richard complained in his heart. Don't ask me, I don't have their contact information either. But if you really want to find it, it won't be too difficult to find their contact information. Okay, I've suggested what I should suggest. If there's nothing else, let's do it. After that, Richard was ready to use Flash to leave. Although his current Flash distance is only 500 meters, it's enough for traveling. Unlike the space door made by Clarice, it doesn't take much effort to use Flash. Even if he uses it hundreds of times in a row, it won't be any pressure for him. Seeing that he was about to use Flash to leave, Sabretooth Tiger immediately stopped him. Wait a minute. Anything else? Richard asked. I've changed my mind. I don't plan to send Clarice to the mutant school. Do me a favor and go with me to deal with my clones. In return, I'll tell you where your father is imprisoned now. Sabretooth said quickly. Although he was not the original body, but just occupied the body of the original body, Richard was still interested after hearing what Sabretooth said. On the first day of crossing, he thought about rescuing the father of the original body, which was considered a reward for occupying the body of the original body. However, he didn't know where the father of the original body was imprisoned, and he didn't have the strength to rescue people from the Department of Mutant Affairs, so he temporarily put this idea aside. After thinking quickly, he said to Sabretooth, I don't disbelieve you, I'm just curious, how do you know where my father is imprisoned? As far as I know, the specific location of the mutant prison is only known to a small number of people even in the Department of Mutant Affairs. There are many mutants who do not support the mutant restriction bill, and there are also many illegal mutants arrested by mutant agents. But up to now, Richard has not heard of any person or organization that has successfully rescued people from the mutant prison. Even the famous Magneto did not rescue the members of the Brotherhood of Mutants after they were captured. This is not because the Magneto in this world is not strong, but because the specific location of the mutant prison has always been a secret. Even with Mystique, a natural spy, Magneto still does not know the location of the mutant prison. Otherwise, with his personality and style, he would have led people to rob the prison early. I didn't say I know where the mutant prison is, I just said I know where your father is now. Sabretooth said slowly. Is there any difference? Richard frowned and asked. Of course there is a difference. Your father was indeed captured by the Department of Mutant Affairs, but he is not now sent to a prison dedicated to mutants. Sabretooth explained immediately. Although he didn't say where the original father was imprisoned, Richard had already guessed where the original father was imprisoned now. Los Angeles branch. My father is still imprisoned in the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department, right? Richard asked Sabretooth. Yes, your father is still in the Los Angeles branch. Sabretooth replied immediately. How did you know? Richard continued to ask. The guy who was guarding me and Clarice said so. The guy whose head you chopped off and whose hands can emit energy. When he was guarding me and Clarice, he was chatting with others and happened to talk about this. More importantly, he also threatened Clarice, saying that we will be studied in detail in the branch's laboratory like your father. Sabretooth said quickly without wasting time. His expression was sincere and he didn't seem to be lying. But for some reason, Richard always felt that something was wrong. Are all the agents of the Mutant Affairs Department so casual? Don't you even have the most basic sense of confidentiality? After thinking carefully, Richard asked the saber-toothed tiger. Your clones, weren't they also made by the Mutant Affairs Department? Sabretooth didn't say anything, but nodded directly. capturing mutants while cloning them. This style is very American. Although Sabretooth has no other evidence to prove what he said, Richard believes that he is not lying. Just when he was about to agree to Sabretooth and go to the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department with Sabretooth, the system issued a new task, and the task information appeared in his sight at the first time. Task: Son of the Devil 2. Task content: It is impolite not to return the favor. Go to the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department and kill 12 mutant agents. Task reward: Phantom Sword. Task time limit: 3 days. Why is it Virgil's ability again? What I have now is the template of Sephiroth. Even if the rewards of Destiny Declaration, Heartless Angel, and One-Winged Angel are not given, the rewards of Prison Gate, Shadow Fire, and Absolute Sky are also fine. Although he also likes Virgil and knows that the Phantom Sword is very cool to use, Richard still complained in his heart. After closing the task panel, he said to Sabretooth, "I can go with you to the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department, but I want to remind you that even if you kill all the clones in the Los Angeles branch, it does not mean that they will not be able to create you in the future. The technology for cloning mutants and your blood samples must have a lot of backups." After hearing his words, Sabretooth quickly said, "I know everything you said, I just don't like these guys making my clones casually. Even if I can't destroy the technology for cloning mutants and blood samples, I have to let them know the consequences of making my clones." Richard was not surprised that the saber-toothed tiger would be angry. If the Department of Mutant Affairs created a clone of him, he'd be just as angry as Sabretooth. Not only that, but unlike Sabretooth, who just wanted to teach the Department of Mutant Affairs a lesson, he had the idea of completely destroying the Department of Mutant Affairs. "What about Clarice? Are you planning to involve Clarice in the action?" Richard asked the saber-toothed tiger. If the system didn't release the Devil's Son 2 mission, he wouldn't mind waiting a few days before going. But not now. The system only gave him 3 days to complete the task. Although he now wants Sephiroth's skills more, this does not mean that he is not interested in the Phantom Sword at all. Although Clarice has not received combat training, she can open the space door to let us in, and she can also open the space door to receive us when we leave. Saber-toothed tiger replied immediately. Although Clarice does not need to participate in the battle and only needs to stay outside to open the space door, Richard still does not think it is a good idea to let Clarice participate in the operation. However, he did not intend to oppose Sabertooth Tiger's plan. After all, Sabretooth is Clarice's adoptive father. As soon as Saber-Tooth Tiger finished speaking, Clarice said softly, "Although I can only open the space door 20 kilometers away at most now, as long as you send me a signal and let me know where you are, I can open the space door and pick you up." Her superpowers aren't suitable for head-on combat, but that doesn't mean she doesn't want to take part in action. Richard was silent for a few seconds, and then said to Clarice, "Then the task of taking care of our departure will be left to you." "Aha." Clarice nodded quickly. Los Angeles. The roof of a building. The location of the Los Angeles branch of the Department of Mutant Affairs is no secret. Clarice first created a space door to Los Angeles and brought Richard and Saber-Toothed Tiger to Los Angeles. Then, a space door to the roof of the building was created. Although the Los Angeles branch of the Department of Mutant Affairs was just a few hundred meters away, Richard and the others did not plan to launch an attack immediately. Richard's magic power has not yet fully recovered, and Saber-Toothed Tiger and Clarice also need to rest and eat. After looking at the Mutant Affairs Department building a few hundred meters away, Richard said to the Saber-Toothed Tiger, "You should have thought about how to go in and kill your clones before. Tell me about your plan." In terms of strength, Richard is much stronger than Saber-Toothed Tiger. But in terms of combat experience, 10 of them are not as good as the Saber-Toothed Tiger. After running away from home with Wolverine, Saber-Toothed Tiger and Wolverine participated in all wars in the United States, including but not limited to the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, etc. Although he is not a commanding talent, he does have extremely rich experience in combat experience. After hearing what Richard said, the Saber-Toothed Tiger frowned and said, "I did consider how to get in, but the battle plan I made may not be suitable for you, and you don't have the self-healing ability like me, so." Before Saber-Toothed Tiger could finish speaking, Richard interrupted him, Who said I don't have super self-healing ability? You also have super self-healing ability. Saber-toothed Tiger and Clarice looked at him with surprise. Well, although it may not be as strong as yours, it won't be a problem to heal injuries quickly. Richard answered very humbly. At the beginning, the super self-healing power he robbed from Micah was indeed not as good as that of the saber-toothed tiger. But his current super self-healing has been strengthened twice. After killing 3 people in Inisha, the super self-healing was combined with the self-healing factor and strengthened once. After killing Aiden and others, the super self-healing was strengthened once more. Although the system did not display in detail the current level of his super self-healing, in his opinion, even if his super self-healing was not as good as that of Sabertooth Tiger and Wolverine, it should not be much worse. Micah himself is a beta-level mutant, and his super self-healing abilities are of course also at beta level. Wolverine and Sabertooth Tiger are also beta-level mutants. Although superpowers of the same level also have strengths and weaknesses, no matter what, his super self-healing has been strengthened twice. If this is still far inferior to Saber-Tooth Tiger and Wolverine, then it is somewhat unjustifiable. How many superpowers have you awakened? Sabertooth asked with a frown. When they first met, he thought Richard had only awakened 2 superpowers, Summoning Long Sword, and Flash. But after seeing Richard reaping the lives of Aiden and others like the God of Death, he realized that things were not that simple. When killing Aiden and his group, Richard also used Big Blizzard, Big Thunder, Bounce, Super Strength, and Super Physique in front of them. Sabertooth Tiger, who didn't know the truth, regarded Sephiroth's template skills and plundered superpowers as the superpowers awakened by Li Zong. Sabertooth Tiger has seen a lot of mutants with 2 or 3 superpowers. Among other things, he and Wolverine possess several superpowers at the same time. Bone Claws, super self-healing, beast-like senses. But this was the first time he had seen a mutant with 7 or 8 superpowers at the same time after living for almost 200 years. Personal privacy is not convenient to disclose. Richard said slowly. Although Sabertooth was just curious and had no ill intentions, he still did not intend to reveal all his cards to Sabertooth. Since you don't want to tell, forget it. If you also have super self-healing ability, it will be much easier. I have asked someone to inquire about the situation inside and know where my clones will be inside. We can use the space door opened by Clarice to go in, and then kill my clones and rescue your father as quickly as possible. After doing this, Clarice will open the space door to pick us out. Sabertooth told his plan. This was not his original plan. After all, his original idea was to send Clarice to the mutant school. After listening to Sabertooth's plan, Richard said calmly, "Okay, let's do as you say." After fighting with Anessa, Aiden and others, to be precise, after killing them, he found that the Los Angeles branch of the Mutant Affairs Department was not as strong as he expected. He had such a feeling. On the one hand, Anessa and Aiden did not pose a threat to his life. On the other hand, he has not yet encountered a situation where the plundering fails. He can only plunder beta-level superpowers now, which means that Anessa and Aiden are not alpha-level mutants. Since you have no objection, let's act tonight. After saying that, Sabertooth looked at Clarice, ready to let Clarice create a space door to leave. At this moment, Richard took out a coat from the system space and handed it to Sabertooth. Sabertooth did not speak, and directly took the coat and put it on. When Sabertooth put on the coat, Clarice created a portal to leave the roof of the building. Los Angeles suburbs, a dilapidated residential building. Passing through the space door created by Clarice, Richard and his friends came to an apartment with extremely simple interior decoration. This is where Clarice and I live in Los Angeles. Before Richard could speak, Sabertooth's voice rang out. As an illegal mutant who has long been on the wanted list of the Department of Mutant Affairs, Sabertooth Tiger has many hidden residences, or safe houses, in the United States. In order not to be discovered by the Department of Mutant Affairs, he and Clarice would move every once in a while and would not live in one city for too long. Although this was a bit troublesome, it had to be said that it was precisely because they moved every once in a while that they had not been targeted by agents of the Department of Mutant Affairs before. There aren't many ingredients in the refrigerator. I'll go to the supermarket outside to buy some. Clarice walked out of the kitchen and said to Richard and Saber-Tooth Tiger. As soon as Clarice finished speaking, Saber-toothed Tiger frowned and said. The Department of Mutant Affairs now knows that you are my adopted daughter. Your identity as a mutant has been exposed. It would be too dangerous for you to go out alone. After saying that, the saber-toothed tiger glared at Richard displeased. When he first met Inisa and the others in the restaurant, he thought Inisa was here to arrest him. However, it turned out that Inisa and the others were not targeting him and Clarice, but Richard. To put it simply, if it weren't for Richard, he and Clarice would never have been discovered by the people from the Department of Mutant Affairs, let alone arrested. Although Richard rescued them, in the final analysis, this was all caused by Richard. Richard didn't pay attention to the saber-toothed tiger's gaze. However, he also agreed with saber-toothed tiger's statement that it was somewhat unsafe for Clarice to go shopping alone. I'll go with you. Hearing his words, saber-toothed tiger and Clarice frowned at the same time. Any questions? Richard asked doubtfully. Have you not surfed the internet or read the news these days? Sabertooth asked rhetorically. No, Richard shook his head. You are wanted, and it is a Class A wanted warrant. Sabertooth said as he turned on the TV in the living room and found a news channel. Then, Richard saw the Class A warrant for his arrest. He frowned slightly as he watched the wanted notices scrolling on the news channel. As for that, just kill 3 of you mutant agents. Richard complained in his mind. Although the number of mutant agents who have died in his hands has now reached 15, it is obvious that this Class A wanted order was issued before he killed Aiden and others. Having completely digested his original memory, he knew that the mutant wanted orders in the United States were divided into 5 levels. From high to low they are S, A, B, C, and D. Not only that, he also knew that Magneto was currently the only illegal mutant wanted by an S-class wanted order. After complaining in his mind, he asked the saber-toothed tiger. You should also be wanted. What is the level of your wanted warrant? Class B. Saber-toothed tiger replied with an unhappy look on his face. Although the higher the level of the wanted order, the stronger the arresting efforts of the Department of Mutant Affairs. But for illegal mutants who do not support the Mutant Restriction Act, the wanted notice issued by the Department of Mutant Affairs is similar to a medal. Not only that, there are even some illegal mutants who will deliberately do some malignant things with huge impact to increase their wanted level. For example, attack the offices of the Department of Mutant Affairs, sneak attack on mutant agents, attack a government department, launch an operation against the Department of Mutant Affairs in a downtown area, etc. Although these practices may seem childish and will draw a strong blow from the Department of Mutant Affairs, for those mutants who want to be famous, this is an important and necessary thing to do. If they weren't strong enough, these mutants who wanted to be famous would even have the idea of attacking the White House and the Pentagon. After hearing saber-toothed tiger's answer, Richard said calmly. It's just an A-level wanted notice, nothing to worry about. If the wanted notices from the Department of Mutant Affairs were really that useful, all the wanted mutants would have been caught long ago. After speaking, he took out a peaked cap and a pair of sunglasses from the system space. Then, with Sabertooth and Clarice watching, he put on his hat and sunglasses. No one likes wearing sunglasses. Okay, then not many people will be able to recognize me. Richard continued. Are you kidding me? Sabertooth and Clarice rolled their eyes at him at the same time. After seeing their eyes rolled, Richard said calmly. It's none of your business and you just hang up. This is the mentality of most ordinary people. I admit that this disguise is a bit random, but I am very confident in the current disguise. If nothing else, the length of my hair is different from the one in the wanted poster. Although they are all silver, people will only remember that the wanted one is a mutant with short silver hair. Richard pointed to his long silver hair that almost reached his shoulders. After hearing his words, Sabertooth Tiger and Clarice realized that his hair was much longer now than 3 days ago. Is this the sequelae of your awakening of superpowers? Clarice asked softly. So be it. Richard nodded. Except for alpha and omega level mutants, other levels of mutants will have some external characteristics that are different from ordinary people. Especially the lowest level Epsilon mutants, who have a monster-like appearance. Although Clarice is not Epsilon, she also has typical mutant characteristics. Her long magenta hair and green eyes are her mutant characteristics. Otherwise, she would be exactly the same as that woman in her youth, with a pair of beautiful black long hair and black eyes. Okay, Don't waste time, Clarice and I will go to the supermarket together. After that, Richard came to Clarice and motioned her to create a space door to leave the apartment. Clarice nodded, raised her right hand and threw out a ball of purple space energy, creating a space door to the alley near the supermarket. Although she didn't live in Los Angeles for a long time, she was very clear about the situation near the residential building. When Clarice was about to enter the space door, Richard took out a peaked cap and a pair of sunglasses from the system space and handed them to Clarice. Clarice did not refuse, and immediately took the peaked cap and sunglasses and put them on. Then, she passed through the space door. The space gate made by Clarice was not far from the supermarket. After coming out of the space gate, they quickly came to the supermarket and started shopping. Without much effort, they bought the food they needed. As Richard guessed, although he only made a simple disguise, the customers and staff in the supermarket did not find that he was the mutant on the wanted list. Not only that, when he was pushing the shopping cart and buying food with Clarice in the supermarket, several American girls wearing shorts and belly-exposing clothes took the initiative to approach him. Although these American girls were very enthusiastic and good-looking, and their figures were much more curvy than Clarice, Richard did not accept their enthusiastic invitation. Women will only affect the speed of my sword drawing. Even Clarice, who is more in line with his taste and has a typical Chinese appearance, he doesn't have too many ideas now, let alone these American girls. After purchasing the necessary food, Richard and Clarice checked out and left the supermarket, returning to the original alley. Just when Clarice was about to create a space door and return to the apartment, Richard's voice rang. Don't build a space door yet, there are a few guys with no eyes coming. Richard pointed to the entrance of the alley. Following his gaze, Clarice saw the American girls who had chatted with him in the supermarket just now. And, a group of men around these American girls. Although I don't know these men, I can tell that they are not good people just by looking at their clothes, the way they walk, and the fancy metal necklaces hanging around their necks. To put it simply, these men look like typical gangsters at first glance. Wait for me for half a minute, it will be done soon. Richard handed the shopping bag in his hand to Clarice. Then, he walked towards these little gangsters with unkind expressions. You don't need to ask to know that these gangsters came here to vent their anger on the American girls who were rejected by him. Although those American girls can be seen as very casual people at first glance, it does not mean that they will not care about others' rejection. Especially if they are rejected by someone they find impossible to reject them. In their opinion, Richard should happily accept their invitation and then do something with them that would make everyone happy. But in the end, Richard rejected them without even thinking. For them, this is not only a rare thing, but also a very shocking thing. Because of their gorgeous looks and hot bodies, few men would refuse their unsolicited invitations. Not only that, they all also have a lot of dog licking. For example, these little gangsters around them. Although being rejected is a common thing, it is obvious that these American girls do not accept it very well. In other words, they would not be able to swallow this breath without teaching the blind Richard a lesson. Richard is not telepathic, but he knew what these girls were thinking. Before traveling through time, he had met many girls like this. Because they are good-looking, they feel that they have privileges and cannot be rejected or opposed. There are many fairies in the world before time travel and in this world. After arriving in front of these gangsters, Richard didn't bother to talk to them and took action directly. Bang 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 bang. He only used less than 1/10 of his strength, and these gangsters fell to the ground, screaming like ghosts crying and wolves howling. Give you 5 seconds, get out of here, Richard said to the gangsters on the ground and the few American fairies who were stunned. Although they were surprised, these gangsters and American fairies left the alley as quickly as possible without any hesitation and disappeared from the sight of Richard and Clarice. When they completely disappeared from sight, Richard returned to Clarice and took the shopping bag from Clarice's hand. Okay, it's done, let's make the space door and go back, Richard said to Clarice. Aha, Clarice nodded, threw out purple space energy, and created a space door back to the apartment. After returning to the apartment, Clarice immediately became busy in the kitchen. As for Richard and Saber-Toothed Tiger, they were sitting on the sofa in the living room, saying nothing, staring at each other with big eyes and small eyes. After nearly a minute of silent confrontation, in this tacit understanding, the saber-toothed tiger couldn't stand it any longer and frowned and said to Richard, "You like Clarice, don't you like beautiful women when you were young?" Richard asked back about the saber-toothed tiger. What? The saber-toothed tiger was stunned for a moment. Obviously, he didn't expect Richard to answer him like this. Although he was a little surprised, he had to admit that Richard's temper was very much to his liking. However, this still does not mean that he is willing to see Richard take away the baby cabbage that he has carefully taken care of for many years, including the vegetables and the basin. No old father wants to see his baby cabbage being raped by other pigs. Even if this pig is handsome and majestic. Although Clarice is only his adopted daughter, not his biological daughter. But the saber-toothed tiger also has the same mentality as any other old father. You are not suitable for Clarice. You can't give Clarice the life she wants. Saber-toothed tiger said with a serious face. You're not Clarice, how do you know what kind of life she wants? Richard quickly replied, no matter what you say, I will never agree to you and Clarice being together. After this incident is over, everyone will go their separate ways and will not meet again in the future. The saber-toothed tiger suppressed his displeasure and continued. I don't object to everyone going his own way. But it's hard to say whether we will meet again in the future. Richard looked at the saber-toothed tiger calmly. Just when saber-toothed tiger was about to continue saying something, Clarice came out of the kitchen and asked Richard. Do you eat spicy food? I can do anything. I'm not picky about food. Richard replied. Aha. Clarice nodded, turned back to the kitchen, and continued to prepare the next lunch. Department of Mutant Affairs, Los Angeles Branch. Jack, the intelligence director, trotted all the way to the operations department and went straight to the office of the director of the operations department. Without knocking, he opened the door and walked in. Aiden and the others are in trouble. Jack quickly came to the black director Benjamin and handed the tablet in his hand to Benjamin. After taking the tablet from Jack, Benjamin immediately browsed it. After seeing the video in the tablet, Benjamin's face immediately became extremely ugly. The tablet was playing the scene shot by the drone. To be precise, the scene in the RV camp. At this time, the RV camp was taken over by the Los Angeles police. The forensic doctors who rushed to the RV camp were conducting a preliminary investigation on the bodies of Aiden and others. While Benjamin was browsing the video, Jack said, the Los Angeles police received a call from the RV campground manager and immediately sent people to the campground. As you can see now, Aiden and the others are dead. The police at the scene realized the seriousness of the matter and contacted their superiors. I have contacted the commander at the scene and asked him to protect the scene as much as possible. In addition, I have sent investigators over. Bang! Before Jack finished speaking, Benjamin crushed the tablet in his hand and stood up with a gloomy face. Let your people submit an investigation report as soon as possible. After the report comes out, you will go to the office of the branch director with me. I want to apply for the permission of the Sentinel robot from the branch director. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.